Hello everyone, hopefully you are doing well. It's time for another Tech Talk, and once again, since the event's going on, we're going to be playing and also at the same time talking, because, you know, that's kind of what we have to do, because the event does take a decent amount of time, but you know, we'll do 2 stars on like one day and then 1 star on the other, and everything should be pretty easy. We'll see what we get to at this point. Nice to see you, Aaron. Hopefully you're doing well. So yeah, we'll just go through the questions. We're going to start off playing the 4-3 Soviets. The reason for this is because I'm really trying to get this SKR-1. It's taken me ages to get it. And then also at the same time for Blue Water, the Bravey, since it's the newer vehicle of the set. So, and then we'll probably spade the Kirov and Chapayev at some point. It's either this or play the Hawkins again, but I just don't have the heart for the Hawkins yet, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The good old Hawkins. Anyway, let's get into the points. First of all, we have, of course, Tacky-chan right there once again with all the timestamps. Once again, fantastic work. I have actually worked out, even if you don't want the game codes and you don't want anything for doing what you're doing, I'm just gonna chuck them at you. So I figured out how to do it. So I'll just send you some game codes every time just to say thank you for doing this, because I think it's something that does need kind of recommendation, recognition. Is that a word? You know what I mean. Like it's something that needs something of value because it is something of value. Hey Karlov, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing well too. So we do live stream these on Twitch while we do them, and the reason for that is also just basically kind of why not just do 2 things at once, right? So the first one is from just for YT295. I've also noticed that a lot of questions on the Tech Talks are mostly add infantry to APHEs, adding things to try to stop spawn camping, submarines, and mouse control to sim battles. Yeah, the basic reason why is the same thing we've talked about a lot when it comes to these things. Usually people focus on game mechanics that aren't in the game, because, you know, there is this belief that everything has to come into the game eventually. So topics always center around stuff which is which generally is stuff which hasn't either been put into the game or hasn't been hugely discussed at any point. So these are now where we're at. Before it used to be about specific vehicles, but nowadays, you know, vehicles get added all the time. And you know, it's the general consensus is things will get added, right? Whereas when it comes to mechanics are a little bit more up in the air. And since also we've had a bunch of different random additions, I think it's fair to say, over the last year or so, there's a lot of belief that there'll be more of them as we go forward. Thank you for the subscription, Kenny. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much, man. And as always, nice to see you. Hopefully you've had a good summer. Hopefully life has been treating you well and you've been doing good. So yeah, and also at the same time, like if one comment is like talked about, then, you know, people want to put their opinion in, people want to talk about their ideas when it comes to it, and then so because it's something that only happens once a week, or, you know, once a week, then, you know, the conversations are a little bit slower, but I'm kind of fine with that, you know. I think that's actually a good thing. So that's basically why you see a lot of repeats, because, you know, people want to put forward their ideas. Then we have Louis Amor, and Lewis says, "Hi Tech, do you think thermal camouflage will be implemented? I think it could be a fun gimmick for a top-tier squadron tank, the PL-01. The Polish, like, experimental tank rubbish. I mean, I love me some experimentals. Definitely hasn't been an issue in the past, like when it comes to adding them into the game. Let's go, you know, good old Poland. Also, it seems like Gajin is skipping out many British vehicles, Ajax, many little scout tanks, like the FVs. My personal favourite, the turretless autoloaded FV4005. Might you know why this is?" Then also it says, anyways, oops, can I get it? Let's see. There we go. Anyways, thanks for the wonderful content. I'll be watching the next one from uni. See you then. Oh, nice. Good stuff. Well, that's fantastic. Hopefully uni goes well. You know, uni was a fun time for me, but also a tough time because I took on way too much work. But at the same time, you know, I got it done. So always nice to see people pushing forward their lives. Always nice to see people either learning, working, you know, contributing in some ways. So wonderful to hear. Hopefully it goes well. Keep me updated. What Polish tank? The experimental PL-01. It was like a stealth tank concept, basically. Like that was the idea behind it. So when it comes to stealth technology stuff, I mean, technically we already kind of have it in the game. Like we talked about this before, right? Like it's technically there in the form of a mechanic which has been in the game for ages, and it's the visibility mechanic, right? It's the idea that certain vehicles, because of either their size or the way that they're set up, they're going to be less seen than others, which I think is a fair cop, because you know that's kind of how it works in real life. If certain things are bigger, then you're going to see them less, and therefore you know you're gonna have to kind of like sort it out, and it's just gonna be harder to see. So for me, when I think about like stealth vehicles, that's how I see them implemented. I don't see them implemented as like they're just, you know, they're just going to be very low visibility, and they're just going to like pop in and pop out, which would just be an absolute pain. I think it's more likely they just have low visibility, and that's pretty much it. The other thing also to note on it is I'm pretty sure when it comes to like the visibility stuff, the only thing we might see is certain, you know how like certain vehicles have like kind of certain like markings on them, or certain areas of them where I'm actually just going to turn this down, otherwise I think it's going to probably send people nuts. I'll just put it on 1. So the thing about it is I'm pretty sure that when it comes to like the thermal profiles of vehicles, which is something that's kind of key in stealth, right? I'm pretty sure they will change those over time, because there are some of them which are pretty unrealistic, is probably the way to put it. And those ones which they'll change, you know, they might add in what you see when you see like certain decals, which are more like squadron markings, and also kind of like set up in those separate ways. So that might be pretty cool. I think it's more likely we get some kind of weird stealth features when it comes to the plane side of things. So since that's obviously a big part of combat nowadays, like not just, you know, physically, but also hiding from radars and things like that. I think that's more likely as well. The one for me that's a little bit worrying is obviously electronic countermeasures and like how they're gonna work. Like, are they going to kind of like take over certain areas if basically people can just block like radar signatures? But that's like a different idea, right? Like that's something that can only really be talked about when the mechanic's added at the end of the day. But for me, I'm not really too worried about stuff like stealth things. Talking about the British tanks, so I've thought about this for a long time, because obviously, you know, being from Britain and also enjoying a lot of British vehicles, it is odd that it is kind of missing out a lot. But also at the same time, like, it has a metric ton of vehicles in it, and is one of those nations which is going to have access to a ton of vehicles in the future too. So it's not like it's not lacking vehicles, which is, you know, one of the issues with a bunch of nations, and it's also not one of those which is it's amazing to me this guy can actually hit me here, by the way. It's one of those nations which, you know, lacks some of its own indigenous vehicles, but it does have a metric ton of vehicles in it. So it's not one of those which is going to run out of vehicles to add in the future, and just because they haven't been added yet doesn't mean there's like a reason why they haven't. It might just be either they've prioritized other things for the nation, or just kind of decided that they don't want to add them yet because they want to prioritize other stuff. Like, a lot of people talk about For example, the good old, like, why is there no light tank or hardly any IFVs for Britain? Well, it might be because they added the South Africans, and a lot of the South African vehicles are light vehicles. So they basically added South Africa to Britain to kind of fix that, like, issue. And then the idea is, once, you know, they've kind of run out in their own way, then they'll start adding, like, the British stuff. So it's a way of setting up all of those things, instead of just going a little bit, like, crazy with the amount of vehicles that are coming in, right? So it could just be that, right? Like, there's a lot of American vehicles that are missing. There's a lot of USSR vehicles that are missing. There's a lot of, like, these, what are classed as, like, big players on the world stage, which are missing. And since War Thunder ain't really going anywhere, like, it's not a game which is gonna disappear anytime soon. It's just a patience game, and that isn't just like a British thing. That's pretty much going for everything. I would like to see the auto-loaded 4005, but I'm pretty sure it has a bigger gun, right? So it might be even more fun, which would be quite nice. We'll see when that comes. Once again, sounds like a fun donkey vehicle, right? Which would be pretty good. But yeah, the Ajax is one of those, like, up in the air ones, though, since it's still incredibly modern. And also doesn't really add anything which is that different to what we already have in the game. The good old Ajax. Yeah. So then we have Paul D. Tech, do you see any downside for having 4 or 6 spawn areas for each team on every map to make it more difficult for people to spawn camp? Because those returning to the battlefield have many choices, it could turn spawn camping into a frustrating game of whack-a-mole. Well, they've added in a bunch of things, like, over the last week to try and improve, things against spawn camping. The issue is, 5 or 6 areas to spawn from. If you actually have a look at most maps, especially the smaller ones, which are the ones you see mostly in the matchmaker, because of the fact that, players can basically pick what they play on through the map rotation filter. Most of the small maps don't have 5 or 6 areas that you could put spawns, right? I think about, I don't know, Alaska, or think about Sinai, or Sands of Sinai. Like, if you put a bunch of, like, spawns on there, you basically have, what, like, the central area you could spawn in, and that's, like, fair, but also you could fix the issue with doing, like, a bar of being able to spawn anywhere on it. If you increased the amount of spawns, like, you would have to go closer into the battle area in order to add them in. And I'm sure some people would be fine with that, but there is a little bit of an issue right now in War Thunder where everything is going towards what would be classed as CQC, or close quarter combat, and a lot of other games have either gone the route of doing, like, close quarter combat, especially FPSs, while the tanks has done it to make, heavy tanks a little bit more usable over the time. Or they've gone to, like, these big broad maps which have CQC areas in them. So if you have a look at, like, Warzone, for example, for Call of Duty, they're a set of people who do that, right? Like, you have this big sprawling map, but it always comes down to a small area where everybody fights around. And, that's just kind of how people do these things now, which is fine. It is how it is. But the trend is, once again, to just make things smaller as it goes along. So, if you think about that, and if you add in these spawns, which, since we've already, talked about how you can't fit 6, friendly spawns on most maps, if you then decide to put spawns in different areas, you either have to make the spawns themselves a lot smaller, or you have to put them closer to the battle area, which pretty much runs into the issue that we've talked about before, where if you have a battle area, and, the spawns are pretty close to it, then it's very easy to spawn camp in the battle area itself. So, for me, like, I'd prefer the bar thing, if I'm honest with you. The other setup, not so much, because most maps just don't fit in it. And I've said it many times, spawn camping is annoying, right? but like there are ways of dealing with spawn camping which I feel aren't followed, and that is, you know, not necessarily playing around the objective all the time, but understanding on certain maps they have areas which can lock down your spawn, so therefore go to the areas which counter those areas, right? Like that's something, like, if you have a look at some of the game, like I've been putting a lot of the gameplay up on the YouTube channel recently, like over the last few weeks, just to kind of show you how in squads or even individually I've been playing certain maps, just to show you like how I've been countering like these ideas. You cut off the flank that you can for your spawn, then you kill everything on that flank, and then what you do from there is you try and push forward and then attack the enemy's flank, hit the center, and then push the spawn afterwards, right? Hey Secretech, nice to see you. So that to me is like how to counter like the spawn camping. And at the end of the day, since you're only just one player, sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes, you know, they hit the other spawns. There's not a lot you can do, and that sucks. But also, that's what I've found to be successful in what I've been doing. So they've added in, you know, a bunch of things to make spawn camping a little bit less, which is good. Or I shouldn't say a little bit less, but what they've done is they've made it so it's harder to spawn camp, is probably a better way of putting it, which is fantastic. But at the same time, you know, it is on the player, or the onus on the player to try and stop it individually. You're not going to stop spawn camping because of how the game is set up, and that is something that can't fundamentally change unless you want to change the fabric of War Thunder. So gameplay wise, thoughts have to be towards how to make it better for the individual teams. Then we have good old Cat Top. Always love the name. Hey Tech, what do you think the ground PvE events a few years back were testing? I was kind of hoping that would replace the current ground PvE game mode, but that's just far away dream at this point. So those were like, those were missions where you had like a squad basically, or like 4 people together. And, you know, you had to go into like specific areas and you had to kind of like fight, right? Like that you had to like take out the AIs which were in like standard positions, or they were in areas where you could, you know, kind of attack or kind of survive, right? And I mean, the missions were fine. It would have been nice to have a few respawns instead of one and dones. But the coordination was needed to actually win them. I honestly think what they were testing there and what they were kind of going forward to is because if you have a lot of games, PvE game modes are something which are kind of lauded at the moment. And, you know, MMOs, most people who play them, and remember, War Thunder is technically an MMO, they play for, like, the PvE part of it. Like, if you have a look at, like, World of Warcraft, for example, the vast majority of people are doing the PvE stuff, they're not doing the PvP stuff. And since Gaijin has pretty much sorted out the PvP stuff, I know we quabble about, like, map design, we quabble about, you know, server issues, we quabble about, like, vehicle balance, but if you just look at, like, the core of the game, it's been pretty successful for 10 years, right? Like, as an open product. So I think what they're doing, like just like how pretty much everybody does, is they're going, okay, so over here we have things that are working and we have things that are going really well. So now what we need to do is we need to experiment in other areas to try and get it to work, right? Because if you think about it with War Thunder, there is a bit of a problem. And this is a problem I haven't really talked about. Because it's something which I'm kind of waiting to see how Gaijin deals with it, and it's the fact that the gameplay of War Thunder has been, as we said, basically the same for the longest time. Like, they've changed maps, they've done all this, but the general game modes are exactly the same. And what ends up happening is, as War Thunder was revolutionary 10 years ago, and as, you know, it did really well and is still doing really well, like, going forward, how is Gaijin going to adapt to a new landscape where people are much more focused on either PvE stuff or they're much more focused and just kind of relaxing and just shooting things and having a decent time without the competitive element in it? Or is it better to go the other way, which is also something that they're trying to do? So recently, they've done a lot of PvE stuff, as we've talked about, you know, different tests. They've also been trying to do more EC stuff, you know, with Naval EC, Air EC components, all of that. They've tried World War mode multiple times to try and get that thing to work as kind of like an end game thing. They've also tried their best to try and get the esports stuff going on. And, you know, and trying to get more and more people interested in that. And guess what? It ain't working. So you have like all of these things which other games do, and they do like on quite a high level. And the idea is if they do these things and any of them are successful, then they have the core gameplay which everybody likes, but then also on top of it, they have like this extra thing which they can kind of, you know, do going forward. But unfortunately, like at the end of the day, the things that are being brought in, or the things that they're trying, they obviously aren't catching as high or as long as people want, or they're trying to develop other things to try and go along that line, right? So I think the PvE stuff is to first of all test if more people are interested in that type of content, and also how can they adapt AI to actually be useful in War Thunder, because that's, you know, a bit of a problem. It's either too good or too bad. It's never in the middle. And then also maybe they're thinking of trying to do some PvE content like missions, or, you know, dynamic campaign stuff, because it was actually brought up in a Q&A like a few years ago that when it came to that stuff, like we at the time, like, you know, like 5 to 10 years ago, there was a lot of people who didn't really bother about that, and the PvP area was the one which was, you know, more important. But nowadays, if you think about it, you have Heli PvE, you have the Assault PvE modes, you have Air EC, which a lot of that is basically just, you know, wandering around and wondering what you're doing. So it's all basically, you know, a lot of the new stuff in the game is more PvE orientated than PvP. And the PvP stuff that they brought in, like World War mode and also the esports stuff, has not done, I think, as well as you can actually think of that you would want it to do. I think is the way to put it, right? Like it's just one of those things which right now, even after so much money being pumped into it and so much money going on, just nobody cares. And that is from just like the numbers that you can see, like only after multiple like sets of like Twitch drops, after so many people being involved when it comes to creating skins, teams, information about it, you know, commentators. They've pretty much done everything you're supposed to do when it comes to esports stuff. They even added like the loot box stuff in, and that amounts to, if you have a look at the streams that they've done when they don't have Twitch drops on, it's about 200 people, 200 viewers. That's it. So me, you know, me over here, just random dude number 5. Like, so I by myself, without doing any of that stuff, can get half of that, right? Without even trying, just turning up and talking about stuff, like on Twitch. So you can see a problem here, right? Like the interest isn't there, and that is a bit of a problem. So they're gonna try a bunch of different avenues to kind of push forward the game, and, you know, and try and make it usable, or try and make it you know, interesting for the people who are like going forward with it. But then that is one of the areas where they're trying it, right? And we'll see if it's successful or if it isn't. And right now, I think the PvE area is going to be much more interesting to more players than the PvP stuff. But yeah, if there's funding for both, they'll do both. Then we have Red 14. The unfortunate part is that Finland's more interesting stuff was skipped over. There's still not enough to be more than just a Subtree, but the only unique stuff was the BT-42. We're just now finally getting the first Patria armored cars and event vehicle, and there's a bunch more of those that could be added. True. And this is just a common pattern, and it's something that I talked about when Finland was added as a Subtree. If you haven't noticed, And this has been a pattern for years when it comes to how Gaijin does things. So initially, when they add in a tech tree, examples of this: Israel, France, both tech trees for France, both tech trees for Israel. Then you have stuff such as France Ground or even France Aviation, which also falls into this. Even Sweden kind of did when it was added. And then also you can have a look at stuff like Italy with the M26 and even like the M36 and the M4 and all of these things. So what they do as kind of like a standard thing is when they add in a tech tree or add in like a subtree even, most of the time what you'll end up having is copy-paste vehicles in that tech tree. So the first set of vehicles that are added to the tech tree are going to be copy-paste. And that is, first of all, because it's the easiest thing to do, because it's much easier to do this stuff than it is to, you know, build completely new vehicles and get the whole models for them and sort that stuff out, right? So it's much easier to create 20 Magacs than it is to create, I don't know, let's say like a Patria itself, right? So because with the Magacs, you literally just use older models that you already have, and then you build upon them, and maybe you update them to a new standard, you know, maybe you improve the textures, but while doing that, you also improve everything else. You know, the other vehicles that use similar stuff, like the M60s, the M48s. So they do that, they put that in, and then they look at how much people are interested in it, while also in the background working on the unique stuff for the nations. And then from there, they start adding in the unique stuff for the nations. So with Finland, for example, okay, they added in the standard thing, and then guess what? Later on, T55M. You know, it is something that is unique to Finland. So then you're going to get that. Then you're going to get the Patrias. Then you're going to get the other stuff. But you always need some kind of hook, right? You always need some kind of hook when it comes to a new tech tree. So that's where stuff like the Zaklam Tega comes in, surprisingly. Or stuff like the BT-42. Something that is pretty low tier, which is pretty accessible to get people interested in the stuff. For France, it was the B1 bis, right? Just as a general idea. So this pattern that they actually follow when it comes to all this stuff it has been the same for many years. So you get all the copy-paste things first. Those come in. And then over like the next few years, since you want to promote the tech tree to its fullest, what do you think people are going to be interested in? Okay, so, hey guys, we have another Magac. Or we have another, you know, M4 for France. Or maybe you wait until later on, where you have, where each update you can promote them well by having a unique vehicle which you can bring in, right? And that's pretty much what they do. So you set the foundation, which is what they've done with Finland, and then in the future, that's when they're gonna add all the good stuff, right? But they'll do it one update at a time, so they can spread it out and get more people interested in it as it pushes forward, which is what they've done pretty much all the way, right? So by the way, that's just the pattern. Like that's just what they do every time. So it's, you know, that's what they've done for at least 5 to 6 years now. Just to keep everybody in the loop, right? Then we have Paulie D again. I like the artillery barrage as an anti-spawn camp tactic. Allow player A to drop arty in his own spawn area, and his own team is immune. Thus only the campers are in danger of being destroyed. Enemy spawn area would still have artillery exclusion area to stop player A from firing into it. I mean, it's an idea, yeah. I'm always worried about artillery. I'm not huge into mechanics that are just straight up like RNG in that way. I think I wish we could actually change artillery standard into smoke artillery, just so it promotes actually people going after each other and attacking each other instead of them, you know, like just not. Instead of, oh, haha, I bonked you, lol. You know, like get screwed. But I would much prefer it if that wasn't the case, and instead there was at least an element of skill to it, because a smoke barrage would be quite nice to do that. So yeah, it's an idea that could definitely help the issue, or even like solve it. I'm just worried about the repercussions, because, you know, the idea of just getting nuked by... If you do really well in a game and you push the enemy back, and then you get them to a point where you've kind of like won the battle, and then you just randomly explode, like, it doesn't feel good, you know? It just doesn't. So yeah. And also, like, there's that whole like earned thing, right? Do you think somebody calling something like that in has earned a bunch of those kills, or have they just like hit a button? And that's the other thing, right? Like with artillery and how it works. There's this. It's like when people would use stuff like drones. Like, do you think it was satisfying, like, spawning it in and then just donking somebody? Do you think it was satisfying, like, compared to, like, using a standard AA? Do you think it was satisfying when, you know, people generally would just get bonked? Do you think those people felt outplayed? Do you think they felt good? And the answer is no, of course not. Nice to see you, Latonque de France. Hopefully everything's good, man. Hopefully you're doing well. Lovely to see you as always. Right, okay. Then we have Sonson. No. Just need to set up and shoot this guy a bit. We are technically doing our naval challenges here. So I should probably at least give it a go. And get into it. I'm a bit worried about the plane. We'll see what goes on. I suppose naval is a little bit more intense than the air, which is what I did last time. Hey Tech, great video once again. A lot of good insights. Hope to see more in the future. Yeah, we're not going to stop. We're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep doing these. They've been very fun. I've enjoyed them a lot, so there's no way we're going to stop unless I die. And turns out not planning to do that. And if I may ask some questions as well. Of course. First, how well would you think that SPHs would get star shells or even rocket-assisted shells to make them be more useful on larger maps and night battles? There isn't... Well, first things first. Night battles were straight up removed from the game because they were so awful to play in. And they're only adding them in as a toggle feature, meaning that the vast majority of people are going to toggle it off because nobody wants to play them. So adding in functionality for a vehicle to be useful in a mode or be useful in an area that nobody wants to play seems like a bit of a waste of time for me. The other thing is, there isn't a single SPH which is at a BR where you would actually find night battles, right? Like, I don't think there's a high enough one that actually would be at that BR. Like, am I wrong about that? I can't think of a single one. Like, all of them hover around, like, 6.0 to 7.0 because they're not very good. and basically, they're just donk vehicles. Did you actually see... this is one thing that I didn't bring up. I think I'm going to do it on... oh, that's a lot of rockets. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk about it on Monday. Who actually benefited the most from the... We did the who like, you know, got screwed in the BR changes. But if I'm honest with you, if you think about it, SPHs as a vehicle type really benefited from the changes because none of them went up because they're trash. But I want, it's just another vehicle I just kept getting gaslit on about its effectiveness and how good it was. And, you know, it just made me sad the whole time. Hey, Mr. Leopard, nice to see you. But yeah, let's see. So I'll actually write that down because I would like to. Vehicles benefited most from BR changes. And that's heavy tanks and SPHs. So, like, there's not really much point in putting the functionality in because I don't think I honestly don't think the vehicles themselves, like there is enough there is enough of them at a BR which would even be able to do that. Like, so, or even like use them. So like for France, like the most recent one, the AUF or the AUF one, it's at 7-0. So it would never see night battles anyway. The Bazooka cannon, that's at 6-7, so that never sees night battles. Japan's Type 75. Same with this, it's at 6-3 for God's sake. So like the star shells or like anything to do with that wouldn't really do anything. Like it would be kind of useless on the vehicle. Let's see. Rocket assisted shells? I mean, sure, if they had them. We actually do have a rocket assisted shell in the game. It's on the AMX-30 Accra, which is fun. So, yeah, I'm down for that. And then, so let's go to the second point. Let's see. There we go. Second, in one point of view, a small change in a programmer's one, or maybe not so much, but how about adding proper FCS to modern ground vehicles? Just like jets got their modern interfaces, tanks should get them as well, no? Instead of just the plain old crosshair that's been in game ever since ground forces started, an actual modern one like we can see on War Thunder Live, just working the way it should instead of only looking pretty and immersive. First of all, modern FCSs, they're pretty powerful. If you've ever read even from like the 80s about like the Abrams FCS or the M1A ones or the Leopard 2s, they have a lot of features that would not be fair in the game. Basically, they have automated systems all through the wazoo. So what I mean by this is the vehicles themselves. They like we have like the automatic laser rangefinder, right? Which kind of made a bunch of vehicles completely busted and still has, by the way. And now imagine that, but applied to everything. So target recognition, that's in there, automated. Aiming, completely automated. Being able to, do like the whole like wind resistance stuff, where to shoot, all that stuff, all automated as long as you pick a point. So if you added in stuff like modern FCSs, it would just be completely broken. Like it's basically it would just be an aimbot at the end of the day, which is no good. You know that you want to at least have a bit of skill when it comes to the game, which is why I'm very much against the laser rangefinder change, because it reduced the standard of skill when it came to the game. It wasn't a good change, in my opinion, putting that in. They did say that they were going to push towards more modern FCS stuff in the game anyway, so that's coming. And I don't know whether that's going to be reticles or what it's going to be, but they are doing it. So that's something that they're sorting out. They just haven't really talked about what they're doing. They just confirmed that they're doing something. So we'll see how that goes. But any more automation in the game, any more dumbing down of the game, I would be against personally. And then the third one, so let's just go from here, because the top tier is pretty much dumbed down anyway. Like if you've ever played a high tier helicopter, if you've ever played like a high tier vehicle with like guided munitions, it's like baby's first like outing, right? Like it's very easy to be able to sort out, which kind of sucks, because then it just comes down to target recognition, and if you're removing that through the FCS, then there's no element of skill left. So then we have third, what would you think about gauging every now and then, randomly over the year, to put back in previous April Fool's events so that newer players could play them and vets enjoy them once more? I'm always down for bringing back old events and old event vehicles. I think the way that they've been doing it, they've actually been doing it twice a year. Like we had the Tailspin event that came back, and then we had the other one earlier in the year. I think the way that they do them is fine. You just got to make sure that there are older prizes and also newer prizes. So therefore, you know, older players and newer players alike have a reason to play them. One of the things you got to remember is in order to keep it going, it's very important to have a regular player base playing it. And one of the ways that you do this is through having, you know, stuff that you can unlock. Otherwise, the things will just die after a day or two. This is something that has happened a lot in War Thunder's history, by the way, where you have something which is around for a little bit, and then it just ends up dying after a few days, and everybody stops playing it because there's no reason to play it. And it turns out if you play the same things over and over again, they do kind of get boring. Like, and this is something that I found with the mobile infantry event, and the big one, even though it wasn't around for a long time. Do you remember that, like, Avatar one that they did with the helicopters? Oh my god, was that tiresome. Like, was that awful to play. Once again, fast, desync issues, absolutely trash. but there was also stuff attached to that one, and luckily it didn't go for too long. But if you remember that, that was so bad. Like that was horrific to play, like as a thing. So it really depends on the event. But as long as there are like new stuff, new prizes, new things to get, I'm always going to be down for that stuff, right? So, like, I think overall it's okay. I think I overshot him. Come on. My ping is really weird on this server. Well, it's not actually, it's just a EU ping, so. Okay, there we go. Took me a long time, but hey ho. Right. Is this real gameplay or a clip? It's real gameplay, I'm just trash. Yeah, I'm playing alongside doing it. I took notes because we have to do the event, right? So gonna play some Naval and Air today while doing the tech talk. Hey Monet, nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing good today. So the next one is from Lewis MK10. Then hi Tech, thanks again for the info on your discount code, much appreciated. Oh, it's all good. You know, always try and answer stuff the best I can. Then we have my question this week is this. I don't understand why some vehicles are able to fire missiles on the move and others can't, especially if they have a stabilizer. It's pretty much just linked to if they could or not in real life. Like, I remember with the Bradley, right? Hey, Sperm Ratter, nice to see you. With the Bradley, there was this whole kerfuffle about should it be able to fire on the move, should it not be able to fire on the move, and it went through like multiple iterations in the game where it had like a CC, which was like a firing speed. So you could fire it up to like 10 kilometers an hour. Then there was times where you couldn't fire it up to 10 kilometers an hour. Then there was times where the launcher took ages to open, and then, you know, other stuff took ages to do. Like, it was just a bit of a pain, right? Like, on the end of the day. So the basic thing, at least to me, with it, is it's just down to what the manuals say. Like, it's a historical thing, right? So it's kind of down to... Alright, so the manual says it's okay to use this thing like in this setup, and it's okay to not use this thing in this setup, so basically it's just down to that. Like, it's down to nothing else. Like, and I don't think there's like a balance thing involved in that. Like, I have no idea at the end of the day if it is, but I remember just like the changes to certain things where it was just all about... How did none of those hit? It was all down to what the vehicle was capable of doing in real life, and then that was pretty much that. So it's just how it is. Like, it's a realistic change, basically. Ugh. Can get down. Right, then we have Carter. How do you think stealth for aircraft will be added? Could we get a dev blog about radar cross-section in the future? The mechanics of stealth would just be hidden, like weight of an aircraft or gun dispersion. And then also, PS, could you add a new high cost channel point reward? There is a big jump from the 50Ks and the slap. I mean, I could do, but I need some ideas, right? Like, what's the what do we want to see? That's the real question. We have a 100K one, which is like definitely nothing or something like that. I honestly think the way that stealth is going to be added is through visibility of vehicles. And then also at the same time, just the way that radars work. So it'll just like vehicles in air will have a percentage modifier on them, whether they can be seen by a radar or not. And this will be affected by ECMs, and it'll also be affected by other stuff, right? That's pretty much it. Like you can see like on ground vehicles, you can see there's that visibility setting, 74%, 108%, and 101%. So that's one of those like soft balancing things we talk about, and that adds to the keen vision and the map awareness thing that goes on, right? I think for aircraft they're just going to add in a similar thing if it's not already there, where if a vehicle is supposed to be stealthy or is or has a modification that improves its stealth, that pretty much means that it's going to have it's going to be harder to pick up on stuff like radars, you know, or harder to hold locks or whatever. I also think with ECMs, what they're going to do is they're probably going to make them timer things. So like you can set it as something which is timed, or you know, it has like cooldowns, and also like when you hit it, it's there for like 5 seconds to break a lock, and then it disappears again. Like that would be how to do it properly in like a balanced way, but we'll see. They've been super bent recently on how to make stuff completely realistic, and I mean that's fine if you want to do that, but also it means you get 80 gems just becoming completely useless. So it be how it do. Hey Chose, nice to see you, man. Yeah, we're doing the tech talk already a bit early, just because I want to get it done, so it's all sorted for the day. So we have Connor 22 Abrams 4. Da, da, da. Hey Tech, what's your opinion in tech balance in War Thunder? I.e. at certain BRs all the tech faces more modern tech. Do you think all countries should have up-to-date technology in all aspects? I think trying to balance a game based on just technology is a farce. 2 seconds, my father's calling me. I'll be right back. Just got drunk called by my own father. God. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Bye, bad. Thanks, Dad. But, sorry, what was the question? I'll have a look again. Yeah, so dative technology is a really bad indicator of the usefulness of a vehicle, because different vehicles are designed for different roles, and also different nations get different technologies at different times. So, for example, like the Chinese F-100A compared to the American F-100D, or even like, you know, the F-105/F-104 compared to the F-100, or even the P-51s, right? Like certain nations got P-51s post World War II, like Sweden, for example. So like, do you put the Swedish P-51 against, like, you know, F-11Fs? For example, because that's when they got it, or that's when the time came through, or do you do it based on when the technology was around, and without thinking about, you know, why technologies are like sorted, and just seeing them all as like equal factors to each other, because like stuff like that just doesn't work. Like It's the idea that you can just completely forget that all factors like this exist, and also completely forget that other nations exist that aren't America, USSR, or Germany. And even then, with like those nations, they have huge differences in their technology and when they develop stuff. Like, one that we've talked about before is the jet age, right? Going from about 1943 to about 1960, just go and have a look at the American evolution of jets. Just go do it. You know, just go sit down one day and look at all the vehicles that were either tested, all the vehicles that were like set up, or all the vehicles which were built by the Americans during those times. And go and have a look at like Germany or even the USSR. The USSR didn't even start catching up, and I'd say catching up very broadly in the jet age until like the early 50s. They couldn't build a proper engine until the good old the good old British decided to give them a Meteor engine, right? Which is where, you know, a lot of the development of those things came from. Like it's just like the space age stuff, like over and over again. Like this idea that all nations had the same technology at the same times and also developed vehicles around those technologies at the same time is just nuts. Which is why balancing by era or balancing by year is just a very, very poor idea. Once again, just like Sweden, the Swedish example, go and have a look at when the J-21s entered service, or the Rs, right, the jet ones, or have a look when the J-32 entered service, or the J-8s for China, or like any of these types of vehicles. What you'll find is like certain nations were heavily ahead of others, and I don't even want to talk about like the naval stuff. The naval stuff's just even more nuts at the end of the day. So for me, yeah, balancing by those factors is a very, very poor idea. And we're seeing some of the repercussions of those ideas and balancing by them now in the game. Now that a bunch of ACGM vehicles are even in a more horrific position. Hey Zentorex, nice to see you. Yeah, of course you can ask a question. Might take me a while because I'm answering other ones, but yeah, and ask it and we can go ahead with it. Hey, Krajiznik, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Like the Swedish example is the one we bring up a lot because once again, like it's one which is just a perfect one. PBV301. That is a 1960s vehicle. Technically the first ever IFV. Technically. 1960s. Right? That thing should face T-64s. Crazy. Or any of those like tank destroyers, right? PVKV2. Late 40s, early 50s. Same with the PVKV3 and the PVKV4 whenever it's added, and the PVKV1. Because they're all made at the same time. It's just nuts. So yeah. I don't like the idea, it doesn't work. So, you know. This idea of older versus modern just doesn't work in that way. Because different nations are on different time spans. Hey Teddy, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. Hopefully life's alright. Right, there we go. Then the other question. There we go. As for another question, do you think the bugs in the game, such as ammo not detonating ghost shells, silent vehicles, are essentially features now? No, obviously not. Otherwise they wouldn't be trying to fix them, right? Yeah, S199 versus P80s. Well, I mean, the P80 was a 1945 vehicle. Like, it's crazy. Hey, George Rockland, nice to see you, man. So I'm struggling to get research points for my British Grand Abbey tech tree. Do you have any suggestions on how I could gain more than 1200 plus research points a game? Well, the first thing is the amount of research that you get is tied to time in battle and actions. So the longer you're in the game, and obviously the more actions you do over that period of time, the more happy you get. So if playing a little bit more patiently, you know, not going crazy and rushing in, is probably the way to do it. And also spading vehicles, so fully modifying vehicles, so you get the research bonuses from that. But no, like they've already talked about the fact that what they're going to do going forward because basically all of the bugs that have just been brought up there. So the silent vehicles thing, that's just because the sound engineer who's behind all of this likes to justify his job. And we all do it, you know. It's one of the key issues with governments, and also key issues with some private businesses. Sometimes you just get a person who just turns up and is like, I need to justify getting paid a ridiculous amount of money for doing nothing, right? Like, so sometimes that happens, right? You meet those people and they're very annoying because they just screw up the chakras of everything that's going on, because they have to justify changing stuff, or sorry, they have to justify the money that they get, so they feel like they have to change stuff. That's how it completely feels with the sound guy, right? So it really depends on like how you see that. What exactly should I modify? I'm quite new to the game and I'm still learning. If you type in !new, it will give you a video series that will help out with all of these like different things. Modifications wise for ground vehicles, parts, FPE, the main round that the vehicle uses, and mobility upgrades is usually the stuff to go for. So like that's the issue with the sound stuff, right? Then, when it comes to ammo not detonating and ghost shells, it's literally all down to desync. Like, I don't know how else to put it. So, the fact, like, right, okay. If you look in the other corner of this video, there you go, down there, you'll see my ping. So this is my ping on an EU server. On an NA server, it's around about 80 or 90. So the desynchronization in War Thunder, because of the fact that most vehicles, you get like one shot with them, and then you have like a long reload, it can completely screw you, and it does it over and over again. In air, you can get hit by people who look like they're shooting nowhere near you because of desynchronization. That's why a lot of vehicles which have like high velocity, high RPM weapons are usually better in most people's hands, like AAs and stuff like that, because they're not as much affected by stuff like desynchronization. And in a lot of other games, like FPSs, this also isn't that much of an issue, because you're usually firing more than one shot at once, right? Whereas in War Thunder, you can just get screwed by desync, and then you have to wait 5 to 10 to 15 seconds, or get shot, and then you're kind of done, right? So those things are just, like, you can't fix those. Like, you can't fix those things. So they're not really, they're not really bugs in that way, with the code. Like, it's literally just inbuilt in online gaming, and it's been around for a long time. Now, they have put in the thingamadoohickle, in the roadmap, that they are going to fix these things, or they're going to take steps towards improving them. I have no idea how they're going to do them, but the last time they tried to do it, it didn't work. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on with that stuff. I didn't realize they were like all right next to each other. Do people not like spawn on the airfield on this map? Hey Razorback Zero, nice to see you. It's all good, man. Glad to do it. It's really fun. So we have British Tanker. Thanks for answering my query. What do you think about having streams where we play in squads with you? I think that would be fun, especially when grinding events like this. Let's just do this. I mean, yeah, I'm down for stuff like that. At the same time, though, so let's go through some realities when it comes to this stuff and streaming in general. The number one thing is when people are on a screen and they see themselves on the screen, they do dumb things. They do things which are away from the norm. And this isn't everybody. This is probably like a 50-50 chance. So this isn't like a minority thing. This is just a 50-50 thing. So, for example, the people I play with. So Alex plays pretty standard. Freeman is just a nutcase, and then you have Bryce, who generally plays pretty standard, but also does some like dumb thingies, and then Rocker is just like a catalyst to craziness, and he does this stuff, right? So like when ideas, or when he's like playing with people, he'll just do crazy stuff, and therefore he's very volatile as a player. Now, so those are like the different like levels you have of different people, and I've played with these guys for a long time, and then every so often, you know, other people like join in, like people who've been around for a long time too. Like we played with Teddy the other day. You know, there'll be a video out today with Teddy, Freeman, Bryce, and me like playing and carrying in a crazy game. Then you have like people like Juan, right? And Juan is a person that was squadded up with and generally done pretty well. And then, you know, there's a bunch of other people over the years that we have squadded up with, and it's gone really good. But also, there has been the opposite way, where you get people who squad up, you know, they play like 2 or 3 standard games and they do really well. Then they start typing stuff in the chat for some reason, or then they start team killing, or then they start crashing into you, or they just do things which, like, it's as if like their brain turns off and they forget that they're in a video game, and it's like, hey, here's my like 5 minutes of stupidity, so let's just ruin it for everybody else. And the problem is, when you stream, that happens a decent amount, and if you're in a situation where you can control that, or control an element of it, and you can control it through the squadron stuff, why not do it, right? instead of like just letting it happen and then just watching people do dumb things all the time. Because at the end of the day, like the way I stream, not for, you know, like really to make like the best content possible. I stream because I find it fun, and also at the same time I see it as a way of relaxing from like all the other stuff that I do. So from like my real job, right, instead of like just the online stuff, which is more of a side gig. So for me, it's very important to have like a environment where it's just chill and it's just more like conversational and talking about stuff, instead of one which is like, oh, let's do crazy things and ha ha ha, like, ooh, look at this, oh, shot you down, ha ha ha, isn't that funny, like, oh, look, my guns work, ha ha ha, look, hey guys, like watching, oh, look, isn't this funny, I killed the guy, woo, you know. Where for me, I see streaming as we're all in a cafe, we're all around a big old table, and we're all just like sat there, just like, you know, chilling, chatting about like the week or chatting about the things that are going on. Like, it's very conversational and it's very relaxed. So like that part of it doesn't really fit with the general stuff that I do. And it can just be annoying because I'm very like goal orientated when it comes to what I want to do in a day. So if I'm trying to do my dailies, if I'm trying to do like specials, or if I'm trying to do stuff like that, and then you just have somebody who is essentially just griefing you, and there's a 50% chance that's going to happen, you're not gonna take that chance. Especially because there's another way of doing these things, which is something I do promote if people want to do it. So the way around it, and the way that, you know, it's worked for us for many years, is if you want to play in the same games that I do, and you know you want to play in the same levels and everything, you just queue up at the same time. You know, you just queue up with the same nation and the same BRs. There you go, done. You fix the issue. So now I can still play what I want and still do what I want, but it gives people the opportunity, if they want to join, they can. And also, we don't have those stupid conversations where it's like, oh, so let's squad up together, and then okay, so we squad up. Oh, I only have like 3-0 Germany. Can we play 3-0 Germany? Well, no. Like you've seen what I'm playing, but now you want to tailor the things around you, right? And the answer is no. We're not doing that. so yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. So instead of the squadding up thing, like for me, the way to deal with this stuff, and the way that it's worked the most efficiently over the years, is to do that. So we're gonna stick with that and just kind of go from there, because otherwise what it does is it cripples my experience, it cripples the other person's experience, and also it just adds well, just basically a variable that I just don't need. Especially right now, the way that like the internet works and the way that anonymity is, there's just no need for me to add in variables into my life which can massively negatively affect it, right? Like, it's pretty much as simple as that. Oh shit. So then we have the next part. Wait, I'm just trying to stay in the air here. I don't have a game installed, please uninstall, yeah. Dude, is this guy alright? My gunner's gonna reload by the time he hits me. Yeah, let's play Animal Crossing instead, yeah. So that, I mean, as I said, that basically is the way that it works for me. And it's the best, and it's the best way I've found to get it to work. Right, there we go. I'm kind of flying sideways here. I don't... We got the kill, but yeah, I don't think we're repairing somehow. Also, while trying to listen to this on the tube, I forgot my earbuds weren't connected, so I ended up blasting a characteristic. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well through the tube. That's quite fun. I need to go to London again. I haven't been in such a long time. I enjoy going to Twickenham. You mastered the skill of saying a lot but nothing at the same time? No, I mastered the skill of context. Context is very important. So then we have Shadow Dweller. That might be a cool idea with the troops, airborne troops, and a bomber over the points. Instead of bombs, soldiers would jump and capture, or be able to airdrop vehicles, dynamic airborne. Something like that. That could probably work pretty well. Like the issue is like the survivability, right? Like the moment I see a bunch of troops being dropped on a cap, I just artillery it. Right? And then oh dear, like the whole squad's knocked unconscious, so but I mean, yeah, if they're gonna add in infantry, like as I've said, they just need to be non-combative. Like they just need to be passive, not reactive or aggressive. Simple as that. It would make the most sense from my point of view. So then we have Flare. So we have, hey TEC, hope all is well on your end. Yeah, it's going alright. You know, BC's on fire, but that's pretty much how BC has been every summer since I've been here. It's just different areas seem to set on fire, depending on what's going on. Thank you, Zentor, that's very kind of you. Do you think the change in ARB battle duration from an hour to 25 minutes remains deserving of its initial criticism from the community? Thank you. Yes, because the reason why they changed it was because of events and also people AFKing. And so because there are certain areas of BR brackets and aerialistic where it is literally just like 6v6s because they've been taken over by bombers and bot bombers at that point, like AI bombers, it meant that people could like play the Build-A-Bear events and also the other events which were based around time and be able to get them done super quickly. That's why all of these events are now based around score instead of based around time or based around anything like that. So it's just the fact that they tried to solve an issue once again, trying to stop botting and try and make it a little bit harder to do things, because the longer you last in a battle, the more RP you get, right? But also at the same time, those people who want to last longer in battles can just go play Air EC now, which is what they do for these events. So it's not really a surprise that, you know, people just swap the game modes. But yeah, stuff like these vehicles here, the JU-288, like that's why they were changed, because a bunch of people were botting, and still are botting, by the way. Like that hasn't changed. They're still botting their lives out. They've just moved the amount of vehicles that they bot in now because they can do. So it's just how it is. And it's sad and it sucks, but pretty much all of those changes that you can think about when it came to RP changes or when it came to time changes are because it seems to be, over the years, pretty much impossible for Guardians to get a handle on the botting. So I'm hoping over the next year they do that, because otherwise we're going to continue to see more and more of those changes which are designed around that. Now they're hoping, like they're hoping, right, and this is a hope, and it may happen, you know, it could sort itself out. But the idea is that they've added in a bunch of features where people can report botting, and also they've told people that it's happening. So, now that they've done that, hopefully for them, now more people report them, they'll be able to squash more of them, so then they can continue with the changes which are beneficial to the players, but also incredibly beneficial to bots. And if they can fix that, and if they can remove the botting element, then we can continue to get all of these nice changes that have been coming in. But if they can't, which is the main thing, not whether people are receptive to it, or not whether, you know, they're positive, because they are all positive. There's no negative for them, unless you're one of those morons who says stuff like, you know, it's, oh, I don't want people grinding quicker to high tier because I don't want noobs in my games. It's like, well, yeah, like, yeah, basically just say you want to gatekeep. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, you want to gatekeep because you're a twat, and that's fine. But if they can't get a handle on the botting stuff, then all those things change back to what's going on. So that's why for me it's the key issue of what's going on. And this all started with the timer stuff, and it's now got to that point, right? So once again, it was the timer thing was a band-aid fix for an issue which should have been fixed in another way. And hopefully now that the issue is getting fixed in the other way, stuff like the timing stuff can come back and also get itself kind of sorted, right? Whether that happens or not, we'll have to see, right? It's just how it is. There we go. Fuck, where's the thing? There it is. So then we have Project AG. Hello, TEC. I'd like your opinion. I would like what your opinion is about quality of life changes to spawning. Okay, well, 2 seconds. Oh fuck. Just gotta try and not die here. There we go. The 23 is really effective at turrets, by the way. Before you spawn in a mode with possibility to respawn, you're usually on the screen for picking tanks that has a minimap. Why not make it so that the shows how many people picked a specific spawn? Let's say 10 people pick spawn A and 2 pick spawn B. You should be able to see how many people are spawning in each spawn, so you can plan better. And after allies finish spawning, the number decrease. It would be even better if symbols of types of vehicles and numbers players should, like a small list showing spawn. This was actually something that was passed to the, well, it was in text passed to the devs this time, and also we've talked about it previously. The idea that you could see where your squad is spawning if you're squadded up with people, so therefore you could kind of match up and, you know, push forward with them. If they decided to do it for everything, then that's what, like 16 vehicles? Like, how many vehicles do you get aside nowadays? Is it 16, 12, whatever it is? That's a lot of symbols. Like, you know, maybe you could do like a number, but imagine like you're clogging up that screen pretty aggressively, right? Like, if you think about it. But as a number, then I'd be completely fine with that. You know, more information is power. You know, more knowledge that you can base decisions off in the game is always going to be positive, as long as they're not automated. And the next one is... Hey, Many the Nico, nice to see you. All right, let's just land. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Let's get the good old IL 10 down. Nice to see you too, Holy Rune. Hopefully you're doing alright today. The other quality of life changes let the player see where his allies are, even after death or before spawning, so the player can plan where to go, respawning. It might be the case, but for some reason not all players are shown on the minimap, in the vehicle picking screen, and sometimes they start to disappear. I mean, sure, why not? I mean, you can also just kind of like go to the I can't remember what it's called, but it's like tactical view or something. Like it's the option down here where you can quick switch between people. So you could kind of see them already, but yeah, I mean I don't see why not. I know people talked about the idea of a dynamic loading screen as you're going in. So kind of like what Enlisted has or what Battlefield has. So you can kind of see stuff on the ground like firing and moving. So you can kind of pick where you want to spawn like that. That is always could be like an idea. And also it's part of the game that hasn't really been changed that much. So yeah, sure, why not? Like I'm down for it. Why does my mic keep moving? There we go. Yeah, we're doing the tech talk. Just getting through with it this morning so we can kind of chill. Trying to do my dailies too. So yeah, both ideas are good. I'd like to see both. Let's see. So then we have Slime Time Entertainment. Hello Tech, new here, so apologies if this already has been asked or answered before. Never have to apologize. Doesn't matter. How do you feel naval battles could be improved? I feel there could be a sort of spawn shield that surrounds the spawn area where enemy shells cannot pass through, but friendly shells can. And if an enemy enters said shield, they would get a return to the battlefield message, like you do when you go out of bounds in ground battles. This mostly stems from me being bad at naval and tired of being shot at from across the planet as soon as I spawn in. On most maps, naval spawns are too open to effectively do that. I think spawn protection is not a terrible idea. Hey Mouse, nice to see you. So like maybe like 10 or 20 seconds of spawn protection. So that gives you time to kind of measure the range and fire back before you get lumped in on by a bunch of big old machines just kind of going into the spawn. Also torpedo fixes as well. So like so you can't get torped within the first like 10, 20, 30 seconds of spawning, because that one is always very annoying, where you just kind of turn up and you can't like work out, like you can't stop where you're going, and then a torp just like is in your way. Like there's nothing you can do. There's a few maps which are really bad for that, by the way. Like they're really, really bad for that setup. So they could do stuff like that. That could definitely work. I don't think spawn camping is a huge issue in naval, especially with the way that the spawns work. Like if you get donked once or twice, then you can just kind of spawn back in and just keep going. So yeah, the main thing for me spawn wise for naval that needs to change is there just needs to be a kind of frigate spawn, which is between the two spawns, which is for stuff like the Rosamacha, because, and also like some of the high to like naval stuff, which just gets like destroyer spawns, right? Like even, well, not always like high tier stuff, but like the river class, for example, the Spey, and also like stuff like that. It isn't really, it shouldn't get a destroyer spawn, it should get kind of a mid spawn. I don't know why they've never really done that, but yeah, it's kind of annoying at the end of the day, and that would be nice to see. Alright, let's just shoot this thing. Da-da-da. Nice. Now we have Hikatoi or Hikatoi signing. So there you go. Hey Tech. Hi. What do you think about independent tech trees but as folders on the top? Wait. Independent tech trees as folders on the top like Blue Water Coastal. I can remember this huge tech tree from the South African vehicles. It would make more sense to put them on their own sheet. At the moment, the trees are capped by 5 lines only. For example, for Italy, there's only one left, maybe Hungary or something. But if you want Gadgeon to put more nations into Italy, they can separate them. This solves the issue with lineups and crew skills. You can still run them with normal Italian vehicles. Due to the upcoming update where you can research helis with tanks, the same can be made with the other nation folders. You think this solution to all players who wish an independent tree for everything? I mean, technically it like fixes the issue, but also it brings in a bunch of other issues. Like the problem with coastal and blue water is you aren't able to research either one, and the reason why they brought it in is because people weren't playing the game, or people weren't playing naval because they had to grind through a bunch of coastal stuff to get to the blue water stuff. So this made sense to do, right? And they don't cross-pollinate when it comes to research. With them adding in the ability to research helicopters with ground, this would mean that nations, you know, technically you could like research Hungary with Italian vehicles, right? If you set it up like this. But also at the same time, like imagine creating a lineup. So firstly, you have to go to the Italian tech tree and you have to pick the vehicles in the Italian tech tree that you want to put in the lineup. Then you have to move to the separate tab of the tech tree to be able to open up the other vehicles to then stick it in a lineup and then work out the BRs between them as well. And it's unnecessary additions and clutter just so people can have a flag on not even the bottom of the screen at that point. Not even on the top, but just to have like a name. So you add in all of this functionality, which is going to cost money, work, time, and all of this. Also people get to see a name. And you also may, at the same time, limit the amount of research that people can get because of how Gaijin may set it up, if they set it up like the coastal stuff. Or what you could do is you could just add a sixth line. Or just a fifth line for certain nations. Or add them in the lines that already exist. Like they have done with some of the South African vehicles and even the Finnish vehicles. Not all of them are in the same lines, right? Like the South African, there is a line in there, but also they have a bunch of AAs which are in, and also the ZT3A2 which are in different lines. Same with the Finnish. So just do that. Like, there's no need to overcomplicate things, especially for uber nationalists who just want to see a flag, when all they have to do is click on a vehicle and see the damn flag. So I don't know, man. Like it's just a silly thing at the end of the day. Like it's just not needed in the grand scheme of things. We have a system that works. You know, no need to screw it. Don't placate minorities in this way. It will never work. Because no matter how you add it, they will be uncomfortable with how it's added. Because at the end of the day, if you add it like this, you still have to run it under the banner of a different nation. And what they want at the end of the day is they want an independent tech tree. So no matter how you add it in this way, they're not going to be happy with it because they don't want it added in this way at all. So just don't placate these people. They're wrong, and that's it. So we have Fears a Lemon. Pretty cool name. I'll just shoot these guys here first. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Yeah. There we go. Got ourselves a fire. Let's go home. Sounds like I'm finding an issue because I don't like the idea. No, I've thought about these issues many years. I've thought about these ideas many years ago and come up and found issues with them previously, right? Like all these ideas have been talked about. I can find you this exact thing on the forums because Pytor made it 4 or 5 years ago where he set up a system which was exactly this. But because he is a person who believes in vehicles being in independent tech trees, he only wanted vehicles from those tech trees to actually research those individual tech trees. So it's just an idea that's been repeated again. Hi Tech, you might have touched that topic before, but what do you think about subtrees? Like for example a Danish tree for Sweden, the J35XD would be interesting, and the Austrian Draken with the M9P and flares. There are also South African ones like the Cheetah, or if you go for a prototype, the Atlas Carver maybe. Where should they go? Because the British Air Tree is okay. I think they're mainly Mirage variants and stuff. Should they be implemented in the French tree? Subtech trees should be the only way that anything is added nowadays. They shouldn't be added in any other way, because any other way adds to the grind indefinitely for people, and we already have an issue where pretty much 80 to 90% of the population only play like 3 nations. For example, let's have a look at this team. So technically, it's America, Russia, and China, right? So that's our team, right? Hey, Alex. So let's see. Russian, 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 Chinese, Russian, 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 American, Russian, Russian, Russian. So yeah. So the idea of adding stuff as subtech trees is always going to be positive and should be pushed forward for. Because you can't... We found over the last 10 years that it's very hard to move people from the tech trees that they've researched. And even after all of these RP changes that they're bringing in, I don't think these RP changes will make people play other nations. I just think that that'll just become the new standard for grinding out one specific nation. Right? Because I've been here for too long. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again whenever RP or research gets changed, reduced, expanded, whatever. When it comes to the South African vehicles, just add them to the British tree. The British tree, if you have a look at like the higher tier stuff, when it comes to their aviation side of things, for the longest time, Britain actually has some like pretty fun and unique like jets, but they have issues with being meta, right? And because of that, there are like holes which a lot of people are going to struggle with. So yeah, just add them to Britain. So we have Matea. Hey, TEC. Could recommend a couple ground vehicles to put Talisman on for Japan and Italy. Keep up the great work. Yeah, of course. Right, let's see. How are we doing on this? Oh, pretty good. What was it? France? Sorry. Japan and Italy, my bad. So for Japan, the first one is the Cheeto Late. The Cheeto Late's fantastic. If you prefer light tanks, the M24. So Cheeto Late is just really good. Very powerful gun. Good, decent mobility. Not great armor, but you don't need it, really. And it's part of a really good lineup. So Cheeto, the AAs, the Chaffee, and then obviously the Chinu 2 if you have it. This will be able to research all of these guys and all of these guys. Mid-tier, actually, the STA3. I know that sounds really dumb, and a lot of people don't particularly like these vehicles because they're stock grind, but once you actually get it spaded out, the STA3 is super powerful. 6.7 90mm heat slinger, has a 6-second reload, good gun depression, good mobility, good everything. So this one's really nice. And then the high tier stuff, I mean 9.0 is the lineup to go for, right? So any of these Type 74s or the Type 16, you'll be able to talisman really effectively. For aviation, if you can buy the A6M5 Co, buy it if it's available. If you don't want to, then the Key 84 Co is really good for the mid tiers. For coastal, get the shimmy and talisman it, and then just drop torpedoes in arcade and don't worry about anything else. Hey, Abby, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. And then Italy. So Italy for the army. Let's see. I don't really know. Like maybe the Hellcat. The Hellcat's pretty okay. The M3A3 low tier is very good, and also is part of an okay lineup, but not the best. So probably the M3A3 and higher tier stuff. I mean the OF40 is really good, even with its up tier, and the OF40 Mark II is also very good. So those two and the Centauro I'd probably go for, just as vehicles to use to grind stuff out. Aviation wise, any of this line. Whichever vehicle you're most comfortable with in this line, is right for talismaning, or the 2005. Blue water, they're all pretty trash. So it would have to be some kind of rank 3, just because you've got pretty much no rank 1 and 2s, and rank 4s are small. So I mean, out of these, maybe the Bartolomeo, but yeah, they're all not in great positions anymore. And then coastal wise, once again, they're all pretty crap. So I'd probably get the Sparviero if it's available, but even that's not very good anymore. So yeah, not great. Not a ton of great options for Italy, but for China, for Japan, there's a ton, so that's good. Right, let's see. So then we have Andrew Fitzsimmons Evans, double barrel. Hey Tech, I have a solution for fixing the helicopter base camping question. The idea being by increasing the helicopter base AA accuracy and damage, but only against enemy aircraft who fly into the small area around the pad. A bubble around the helicopter pad could be developed to where if an enemy flies into it, they will be met with their downfall. You can make this bubble as large as you want. I'd personally say 500 by 500 would be fair enough. Anything outside that area would be able to fly around how it already is now. They did that previously. So they actually did what you're suggesting before what Heli-base AA is now. So pretty much if you went near a helicopter pad, you would get tick damage. So your plane would like go yellow, then orange, then red, then die. So this was already implemented. People really didn't like it because you could be just flying around and trying to hit helis in planes or anything like that, and no matter what you would do, if you wanted to get close to actually shoot the heli or do whatever you wanted, if the heli stayed above the helipad, like a lot of them did, you would always take damage. And that would mean that your flight characteristics would be affected, and overall it wasn't very fun. So it was one of those scenarios where whatever you did, you got hurt, right? And so if you were countering an enemy, then you couldn't come out of it unscathed. And that is very annoying if that happens. So the current situation right now, when it comes to if certain helis are spawn camping other helis, they just have to make it so when a heli is on the ground, right? When the heli is on the ground, it's invincible when it first spawns. Once it moves off the ground, it is no longer invincible. So, if that's the case, when a heli player is on the ground, when they spawn, they just have to have a look around them, like this. Okay? Now, once they do that, right? Once they do that, then they can work out if they're being spawn camped or not. And then if that doesn't work, you give them spawn protection for like 5 seconds, they can turn around and hit the person, right? The other thing is no matter where you put like the distance, the people will just sit outside of it. It's the same thing with like ground spawn camping. Let's see. So then we have Walrus Jones. Let's see. Hi Tech. So here's a bit of a bizarre solution concept for trying to resolve the one spawn issue that tries to fix the issue with a positive incentive. Oh no. This is a rework of reserve vehicles. Simply put at each rank for each nation for each game mode allows respawning, with reserve vehicles having a... Wait. 2 seconds. Just let me shoot this guy. I gotta be careful because there's a lot of guns on this guy, so... I created something on him. There you go. Whoop! Sorry, I got a bit of a... Going very slowly at the moment, so... Just gotta make sure that I survive. I've been shooting really badly today. has not been good. There we go. Let's see. So this is a rework of reserve vehicles. Simply put, at each rank for each faction for each game mode that allows respawning, with reserve vehicles having a definite battle rating instead of defaulting to 1. There is a reserve vehicle to fall back on gained when you get your first vehicle in the rank. Say rank 3 US had the M4A2 as a BR 4.0 reserve vehicle, it being a passable and versatile vehicle that there is a little to write home about, but is definitely better than nothing. This was actually, okay, so this was a point that was brought up by another YouTuber, and I can't remember his name, but basically, like, during the time where everybody kept putting out their ideas of how to fix the economy, this was one which got brought up a bunch. It's a really bad idea. Like, having a reserve vehicle at each rank is a really, really poor idea. And the reason for it being a poor idea is a fewfold. The first one is, what if the BR of that vehicle has to change, and then you have to change its rank, because otherwise you get a super bloated rank if a bunch of vehicles, because of changes to the game, get higher BR than it, therefore you have to put it above it, and then you have to restructure the whole, like, tech tree around it. Secondly, you've now straight up given botting a way of climbing tech trees without even buying premiums. And you've also given them variety and versatility in the way that they can play, and also they won't have to pay any SL for anything. So you pretty much, and they can do it without having to buy premium, which is the thing that they've set up now. So now it'll be harder to catch bots, and now you've given them at least 40 or 50 vehicles that they can use to grind through tech trees and then sell accounts with a very positive SL balance. So unfortunately, it wouldn't really work because of that. One of the issues with the economic changes that were all talked about and brought up by people over the time of that period just decided that botting didn't exist in the game. And it's something that has actually kind of annoyed me over the years, because it's like, so my main job is creating systems when it comes to like construction or when it comes to like building, and being able to either like transport chemicals or move chemicals about, or the idea is creating like systems where you can like make something function the way it's supposed to. So let's say you have like a product where you have to combine 3 elements at specific pressures and temperatures, and also in a specific climate. And how do you do that, like within the space of like a warehouse or something, right? So what my job is to make that stuff realities, right? And it's really fun. And one of the things you got to be super careful of when setting stuff like that, you have to leave like percentage leeway either way for things going wrong or going right, because no situation is 100% flawless, right? So what that pretty much means is, because no system is 100% flawless and we live in an imperfect setting, you have to take into account negative factors of things that you're kind of pushing forward with. And this is massively, like, just completely forgetting one of the major negative factors, which has actually led us down this road of economic turmoil in War Thunder. And that's why these suggestions, when they were brought up like months ago, I completely dismissed them, because they've just forgotten one of the fundamental reasons why we're in the position we are, right? It's amazing to me that happens. So yeah, that is a no, because you increase the issue, which is actually the actual issue in the game, which has always been the actual issue, and finally people realized it after such a long time. Let's see. I'll just land and then we'll read the rest of it. Yeah, I can't. Does anybody remember what the YouTuber was who brought up that? Who had like that whole like dossier of like changes they wanted to make to improve the economy? And then most of it, as I said, most of it just completely forgot or didn't take into account like fundamental flaws with why the economy's been abused like over the last few years. Like whatever video that was, and like I went through it. Like we went through it on stream, and just yeah, it was. You should have just put on top of it in a perfect world, you know. In the perfect world where everybody is really nice and nobody tries to break the rules, right? Fix the one spawn problems causing by making respawns being stressful and risk free to play players, since reserve vehicles are technically free to repair. Then we have fix the one spawn problems caused by people buying a solo premium. This also technically provides premium vehicles on additional benefit, technically speaking. They just gave them backups, so that was how they fixed it. Tim's Variety, that was the one. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Because, yeah, it was the exact same idea or proposal. Let's see. Final suggestions for fixing the economy. Alright, was it this one? Yeah, here we go. So yeah, the guy... Oh shit. No, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, fuck. I just reset everything. That's fine. So I shouldn't just be sat on here. It's not very fair. So like, this was the whole like dossier thing. And it went through a bunch of different stuff, right? And yeah, look, here you go. This was literally the first part of it. Implement reserve vehicles at high tiers. And it goes through like all of the different things. It even talks about like examples of appropriate trainer aircraft could include. Oh, trainer aircraft, man. But yeah, and it was talking about it in, great ways and blah 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 blah. But once again, just didn't at all bring up what would actually happen if things go through, which is the simple fact that you've just now put botting in every single part of the game. So like, fun times, yeah, but just report them, bro. Yeah, of course. And then they just create new accounts and they just do it again, and people get sick of it, and eventually everybody gets annoyed. Like, it's just how it is. So yeah, it's a bit of a rough one. Once again, just good if external factors are not thought about. So then we have Danny Gel Jokic. It's a pretty cool name. Hi Tech. What do you think about in War Thunder if they had the M91 Vihor, the SO122, M18 T55, and what BR do you think that would be? Yugoslavia, we love you. Somehow you disappeared though, and nobody knows why. Must have been a black hole in history. I mean, I did a video recently on the SO122. It's the Sherman with the 122mm. It's not a ton of information known about the vehicle, but seems pretty fun, so why not? The M91 is like a T-72 thing, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, from Yugoslavia. I like this from good old Tank Encyclopedia. Main battle tank, at least 3 incomplete prototypes built. God damn it. It's good. And then also the M18 T55. I'm fine with all of them being in. Like, uh, for some reason, there's a lot of people who push for Yugoslavian vehicles, probably because it has a higher population base in the areas of former Yugoslavia, and also it's one of the areas that hasn't been added to the game yet. So, yeah, it's a collection of Storm. I'm sure they'll add the vehicles in the future, and we'll see them. What's my thoughts on the BR of them? 6-0, all of them. Then we have Shadow Dweller. Would love to see a World War setup. You mean like World War mode? I mean, we did have World War mode. It had its issues. I honestly think the more we kind of push forward when it comes to like World War mode stuff, I honestly think it would have been much better as like a PVE thing, like or I put in like all my recommendations on how to fix the damn thing, or at least improve it. Practice actual sessions. An offline mode instead of just all ranks. Don't make changes literally like, hours before they change things. Make sure to properly test it so it's not broken like when it launches. Stop adding in crazy mechanics. Stop letting people like a week or two before basically just get all of random people together in a few squadrons to be able to annihilate everybody else. So you have like limits on those things instead of like just stacking squadrons, so therefore no one else wants to play because it's a completely unnatural environment. And don't let people command stuff which were also involved in testing the modes. Like there's a bunch of different things that should have been done differently. But I'm sure they'll try and bring it back again, and then we'll see how it goes. It's a mode which I had a lot of high hopes in, and I think a lot of people had high hopes in, but it failed. And the reason it failed is the same reason why a lot of stuff fails when it comes to gaming. People try and make it overly competitive, and the people, or the small percentage of people who are super into the heavily competitive nature of it, there's not enough of them to be able to make it a sustainable product, and then also they start infighting on each other, and also start hating the mode itself because they don't have natural competition because there's not enough people. So yeah. It's just how it is. Like you can see it in pretty much any other game which is trying to make heavily competitive stuff happen. So we have Burkhart builds. I wonder what he builds. What do you think he builds? Hey Tech, hi. What do you think about bringing back vehicles like the Panther 2 Tiger 2 105, especially considering that other nations have paper vehicles like these still in the game, such as the Hori J6 R2Y2, which is very much a double standard. Depends what standard you're looking at. If they don't want to bring back the fake Panther 2 and the Schmaltem turret, maybe they could, a good idea for Gaiden to consider adding the built one with the Panther G turret as an event vehicle or a premium. So the standards that you're trying to use to bring them back are not the standards that Gaijin used to remove them. My personal opinion is literally just bring them all back because it don't matter at this point. The rules on why things are in the game or why things aren't in the game are all exactly the same or all exactly different at the same time. So what that basically means is there isn't any standards which you can apply to anything at the moment for War Thunder and where stuff is added or why it is. There is always a addition or an example which is counter to any piece of logic that you can put towards why certain vehicles are in the game and why certain vehicles aren't. They've said for the longest time they want to remove the R2Y2s because they are fake. They also added the J6K in because either they didn't have proper documentation on it or they thought it was real, and it turns out it wasn't ever finished, but the model was already finished, so they wanted to get it in. That was actually a thing I literally saw talked about by one of the Gaijin employees about it, where literally they said, well, we didn't
we thought that it was real, so we had it made, and then it turned out it wasn't real up to the standard we thought. So then we decided to put it in anyway because it was finished. And it's like, oh, okay, whatever. I don't know. Maybe checking that stuff should be a bit more of a priority then. But like stuff like the R2Y2, they said they changed. They're trying to keep to the standard of basically only adding fake vehicles where there is holes in tech trees where they can't fill with other stuff, which is a fair standard if it was true. Once again the J6, but now since there ain't no rules and we're in the Wild West, just add them back in. It don't matter. At the end of the day, like nothing, any reason to keep it out or keep it in just doesn't exist anymore. Like, they've made that very clear, especially with the Naval standard, which we've talked about it many times. Naval, when it comes to the War Thunder, is always the canary in the coal mine. Every time. It has been for pretty much the last 3 or 4 years, because it's a game mode that isn't played as much, therefore more chances have to be taken, and also at the same time, like more abuses happen because of the lower size of the player base. So yeah, I'd say bring them back. Like it's just not just from a, because technically for me I would have never added them in the first place, because that's like where my mind is at when it comes to fake stuff. Usually they're the most unbalanced stuff in the game. They don't work very well. Overall it's just negative for pretty much all parties. But if they already were there beforehand and then you remove them, and then you're just gonna annoy a bunch of people and also cause imbalances, because certain people will have access to the stuff and other people will not have access to the stuff, and that is just not fair. Same with like event vehicles and anything like that. My opinions are exactly the same. They don't change in that sense. So then we have Sir Revolver. Hello Tech, Twitch chat, YouTube, and AJ the dog. Long time listener, first time caller. At least on the show. This might not necessarily be a question, but more of a throwing an idea for a discussion. Well, that's what most of these things are anyway. Alright, let's see. The idea would fit nicely if Gaijin would actually rework play profiles, and the idea is to add a commendation system, similar to how other games have it, such as CSGO, Overwatch, at least the original one. I don't know about OW2, League of Legends, and of course, Heart of the Swarm? Was that Heart of the Swarm? Oh, Heroes of the Storm, sorry. Heroes of the Storm was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. So, commendation system is a way for players to appreciate other players by clicking the button on their profile, or it could be right-click on the name and have a commend button, just as complaint is, that praises them. Like in CSGO, there are 3 options: is friendly, is a good teacher, is a good leader. In my opinion, it would be a good idea to add such a system to War Thunder, with fitting options such as good pilot, good tanker, or good captain. Alright, let's just land this thing first. There we go. Let's see. There is a commendation for each game mode and add a reward for receiving commendations. For example, every X commendations of any kind you receive a trophy, like you get after battle containing boosters SL, instant mod research, talismans, blah blah blah. And as we are speaking of commendations, I'd like to give my praise to Tech for making 2 to 3 hour long tech talks every week, and Tacky-chan for making timestamps. It is really nice, actually, of good old Tacky. These things are fun. I enjoy them. And then also additional short thing. They have added heli research in ground vehicles, so it doesn't seem that anything stops them from enabling research, air with ground, etc. I feel like it should be an option for players who have entire trees research, so the overflow of RP would transfer somewhere else and not go into the void. Sorry for being this long, just wanted to explain it as best as I could. while still not being a full-blown essay. Hope everyone has a good day. That's all good. So a commendation system is a good idea overall. Like, it's something that's been put into games quite a lot, and also at the same time, has been part of a lot of PvP games for a while. And you don't have to add anything crazy to like the rewards that you get. Like maybe if you get X amount, you get like a title or like a profile pic, right? Or as said, like a booster box or something like that. It doesn't have to be like a vehicle or anything. So for me, when I think about stuff like that, I'm completely fine with it. I think it would be nice to do. Also, like I don't think people should be forced to use it if they don't want. So if after a battle they don't feel like it, they don't have to. But just have it there, just to kind of, just be there. We've talked about profile improvements for the longest time, and how to try and improve them and try and make them better. And hopefully we see more changes in the future, since it's a part of the game that just hasn't moved. So I'm sure it will. It's one of those which will be nice to see. And also the heli research for ground thing. I think what they're gonna do later in the year, like I had to look at like the roadmap stuff, right? I'm pretty sure later in the year what they're gonna do is they're gonna make it so blue water stuff's gonna be able to research coastal, and also at the same time the other way around. If they don't do that, I'd be very surprised. Because once again, it's a bit of a fundamental issue with good old War Thunder. So then we have, let's see. So this is Oh Don't Mind Me. Hi Tech, hope you're doing well. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Here's a fun yet kind of overdone topic: historical accuracy versus gameplay. Or physics accuracy versus gameplay, depending on what theme is tackled. Issues of World War II, Cold War narrative aside, just let's leave that inside an isolated, sad, unlit ditch for a while. I mean, it shouldn't really ever be brought up in any type of good idea at the end of the day. So as we've talked about many times, even different people have different beliefs on when the Cold War started, and also the different evolutions of technology from it. Rather, I would like to hear your thoughts more through a gameplay potential detriment lens. Is there any historical accuracy mechanic in particular, be it already in game or not, that you think it's worth pursuing or not even have batted an eye in the first place? Is there any artificial mechanic, meaning one that does not necessarily try to follow the in real life accuracy portion of things, and or is there just there for quality of life? That should be preserved or considered in the near future for the sake of gameplay? This is kind of a broad question that can branch rather easily, and it also depends on how it affects each game mode in question, so no need to overdo it. Well, I mean, we'll pick certain things, right? Could we play 10-3 together? No, not today. So the simple fact is there are a bunch of mechanics in the game which are simplified compared to real life. Every single air mechanic is simplified. Like every single one. And also, when it comes to, the way that a lot of ground mechanics are simplified as well for gameplay ease. And I'm completely fine with pretty much all of that. I think it's a positive thing that they are simplified. Because if they weren't, and you had to actually do things properly in specifically jets, then all you got to do is go play DCS, right? All you got to do is just sit down for like an hour or two in DCS, and then open up what DCS is, and then kind of hit the barrier of what happens in DCS, which is you look at the screen and you go, what the hell is all of that? and then you're done, right? Like and then there's nothing. Like you either sit there and you have somebody who helps you, like learn all this stuff, or you sit there and you read about a bunch of the stuff and you go, okay, maybe I can do this. Or you do what most people do, is you turn around and go, people told me this is like War Thunder, or people told me this is like X other flight combat sim, or people told me it's like this, but it's not. And then you just uninstall the game and move on. And then what you do is you tell people like a year later how cool DCS is and how everybody should try it, and how, it's really fun, even though you only play it like once every 6 months. So there's a lot of stuff in War Thunder that's simplified. Aiming, for example, is simplified. And the reason why it's simplified is because, sorry, I shouldn't say the reason why it's simplified, that's wrong. But because it's simplified, even in a realistic setting, like aiming is simplified, moving around is simplified, all these things are simplified, but it means that it's more accessible for the average person, right? And that is something that War Thunder, as a game, made it really popular, because they were the only game in history to be able to bridge the gap between what is seen as a combat sim and what is seen as an arcade game. And that is through stuff like mouse aim, and that is through stuff like its mechanics. So that's why the game has prospered. That whole reason. Now, things that I would like them to not make crazy realistic, compared to other things, is the automated stuff that happens in planes, like in the automated stuff that happens in planes, in modern day, and also tanks. So we talked about one earlier on, like the FCSs, right? Like modern MBTs have crazy good FCSs. If you add those into the game, you remove every single piece of skill from the game. Just like how with the other one, just like how when they added the automatic laser rangefinder in high tier for grounds, they removed a part of the skill of the game, right? So that sucks at the end of the day. So systems like that I wouldn't like added. But also at the same time, pretty much every system you can think of in the game, mechanically and how it works, is a simplified version of how it works in real life. You need 8 stars for the SU-25. And I personally have 6 at the moment. What do I think about it? I think it's very much overhyped as a vehicle. Just like the SU-25T and the SU-39. We'll have to see, though. Obviously. So yeah, I honestly think I don't want any more automated systems put into the game. I don't want to dumb down gameplay even more than it already is and has been over the period of time. I don't want automatic like countermeasure dispensers for airplanes, because they already got added to helis, by the way. I don't want automatic systems, like even stuff like APSs, I really don't generally like, because basically I don't like stuff that means that people can play dumb and they don't get punished, because then they don't learn. Hey, Tioki, nice to see you. Hopefully doing good. So then we have, let's see, Leon Schreiber. TEC, greetings from Germany. Greetings from Canada. What do you think about the Chinese F-104G, and why does it not get flares at 10.7? Because historically it didn't have flares. That's pretty much it. It's the J as well, isn't it? Not the G. But yeah, it's at the BR that it's at because it's fast and has good missiles. And as a person who we've talked about, as an idea that we've talked about recently, sometimes it's okay for certain vehicles to die when it comes to the game, meaning that they don't get played, meaning that they never get seen. The F-104 is that type of vehicle. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. You can go and play 8.7 right now and go against all of the F-104s. So if they put down in BR stuff like the F-104G and things like that, they just start taking over games. And that's what happened with the F-104Gs, the F-104A, the F-104C, all of them. So yeah, just kind of a pain. Unfortunately, we're at a time in War Thunder where missiles are crazy strong, and certain vehicles which have to rely on speed for defense, not just the F-104J, but also stuff like the F-1 and the T-2, aren't really going to do as well. But hopefully decompression and stuff like that can, you know, improve it a little bit. Hey, 996, 997, 991. Nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing well today. What do I think about the R-73? I'm not huge into speculating on things that are not in the game yet, because they usually change quite aggressively before they're added. So anything that I talk about when it comes to the R-73 is pointless, because it could literally change tomorrow. So that's my overall opinion on it. It's also getting put on a very poor platform, so I don't think it's going to matter too much. So then we have Zawoni. I'd like to coin the term CAS struggle between top tier CAS and SPAA. Sure. And then what we can do is we can get a CAS player to write a book called My Struggle and cause the Third World War. Right. Then we have Maxwell. Hey Tech, I wanted to say that the Tech Talks are great. Agree. They're very fun. I enjoy doing them. We are going to continue them infinitum. As a veteran player, as a veteran player, or at least I call myself that, I want to point out that the plants in this game are literally the worst, period. Can we do what World of Tanks does, where if you get near one, it becomes invisible, or make them disappear fast, or both? Also, thank you, my 40-ton tank gets stopped by a thin tree in the jungle. Because. Yeah, it's weird with the tanks and the trees stuff. I still remember the time where sometimes you ran into trees and then your driver would die or your crew would get knocked out. That wasn't a very fun time. But yeah, it would be nice if you could knock down more trees, especially with very heavy vehicles. Stuff like bushes and things, I don't really mind them that much. I think they should make more of them destructible. But once again, in the roadmap, I mean, they talk about changing textures and improving stuff like that, and making certain areas more defined in their actual like physical models. So when you shoot, you're gonna miss them more often, right? So I think generally that's good. I don't think that's too much of a problem. The other thing is they're making like the bushes and stuff destructible that are going to be on vehicles. So I'm wondering if they're going to make standard bushes more destructible as well when they make that change once again in the roadmap. So we'll have to see how that goes, and also how that ends up, you know, happening. I don't want them to disappear though. I wouldn't want them to disappear from plain sight. Maybe in arcade, but in other areas, probably not. We started the Tech Talk 2 hours ago, Slife War. So I would personally prefer if they did, if they in realistic kept it realistic, but in arcade they could move it about. So we have Sniper Paladin. Let's do this. Hey Tech, hi. What's your opinion on adding player titles for the amount of money spent on the game and make it based off of whales? I.e. Baby Whale at 150 is 200 spent, and so on up to either 10k or 15k, and gives you the title Blue Whale at one of those higher price points. I mean, people can spend their money however they want to. Like, it's not my place, and also not my opinion that I should be fiscally responsible for other people's financial decisions. Incentivizing financial decisions through titles is something that Gaijin has done pretty much since the start of War Thunder, with pre-order bundles and also sale bundles, where if you have all of the different bundles, you get a special title. So I don't see why that shouldn't be expanded upon, you know, if they wanted to. The question is, do players need another incentive that already, you know, buy a ton of stuff? Is that a good enough incentive to make them buy more things, or want to buy like the simple stuff? So for me, like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I don't think it's going to change anything, and generally seems okay. But at the same time, I don't know why anybody would run a title like that. Like it's like running like the Rama title. Like, you're either doing it because you're an edgy person or you are a masochist. Like, and you like people going after you. Like there's a in any online sphere, especially one which has at least some small amount of younger population. Usually, it's not a great idea to put a target on your head, right? You know, like targets on your own head are not things which are not great. But since I'm not a person who tries to tell people what to do with their money or believe that I have any responsibility for how people spend their own money, I also see it as, well, add it in and it's up to them, like their decision whether they want to do it or not, right? So it's not, if they want to do it, so be it. If not, it doesn't matter. So it's like giving people the opportunity is the thing, right? Like that's the important bit. So do that. So yeah, why not? So then we have Away With You, Val Begar. Is that a Harry Potter? Oh my god. Hello again, Tech. Hi. Thanks for answering my last essay. Love the initial reaction. That doesn't mean... Right. Doesn't matter. I remembered after posting it that it's one question suggestion per tech talk, so I was going to do exactly what you suggested. Copy-paste. Well, that's good. So tech, hear me out here. Just add new tech trees. Easy. And all the tech trees for every single nation that ever existed. As we all know, Israel is an amazing Magak tree, and I really love it, especially the new Magaks with rockets. I'm being held at gunpoint. Please send help. Right. Yeah, I'll just land first. It's Magnum time. It's gonna make sure that this works. It's Magaku. There we go. Good landing. I probably have the old card title. They should bring back more of those titles. Jokes aside, I understand why people would like new independent tech trees. Our preferences when it comes to where their nation's subtree goes, even if I don't fully agree. I, for one, play all the nations, even if two of them have a colourful history with mine, since at the end of the day I understand that this is a game, not historical recreation of past events. While we're at it, subtrees are the way to go, and as people said, if it gets to a point where you have 3 to 4 nations in a tree, just change the name in something that fits it. Example, Italy, Romania, Spain equals Latin Alliance. France, Czechoslovakia plus Poland equals French Entente. I like that. Besides that, an idea I wanted to use in favour of independent trees before Israel was a thing was to give a percentage boost to lone captured vehicles if you spaded said vehicle in the original tree. It could be a simple temporary until spaded boost in RP gain or a boost in research speed. For example, if you spaded the T-3485 in the USSR tree, then any other lone captured T-3485, the Finnish one for example, gets, let's say, 50% faster research. For any of the modules, you'd have to grind again. In my opinion, this would incentivize people to spade vehicles and help those of us who want to grind through all the trees easier. Currently, I can't think of a disadvantage to something like this, and I believe everyone besides hardcore grinders would love this, but I'd love to hear your opinions on this. PS, the percentage, what it affects can be changed for the sake of balance. I just gave the first example that came to mind. If people wonder, I don't know if it would work for things like the Firefly since it's a modified Sherman. I'm not enough of a tank enthusiast to know how much is different between the two besides the gun. Like, when does a loaned captured tank stop being the same tank? How modified does a tank have to become an entirely new beast? Well, okay, so you've answered your own question there, or you've answered your own query for questions with questions, and that's pretty much how it is. So, is the T-34-85 for the USSR the same as the T-34-85S53 in the Chinese tree? Because technically it isn't. What about the T-34-85 guy, right? So yeah, it's a little bit odd when it comes down to it. No, it's all good, Benny. Hopefully, I mean, that stuff like that's pretty fun. Like that sounds awesome. Bit of manual labor never hurt anybody, unless it was with heavy machinery. But the simple fact with it, is they're kind of adding in that system, right? Like they're adding it in, but they're not limiting it to vehicles. They're limiting it to time instead. And so that would be like my main query. Like, is it better to do it per vehicle? Like in the sense of every version of the T-34-85, would it be better to limit it to that, or would it be better to not limit it to a vehicle, but instead limited it to X amount of games per day? So they've gone with the X amount of games per day, which, you know, seems to be working pretty well. And overall, I'd say is, or has been, quite good. And, you know, they're going to go forward with it and see how it goes. And then they could just change that amount of games. So then you have a reason to play the vehicles anyway without tying it to specific ones. So I think the way that they're fixing the issue is actually better than limiting it to specific vehicles, and hopefully it'll promote people playing other stuff going forward. You could technically add both systems on top of each other, but then you'd be like grinding out vehicles so quickly it'd be kind of nuts. Like you'd be done with them, like certain ones, so quick that, you know, it would take you like 10 games to spade like a mid-tier vehicle, which I'm sure would make some people happy, but at the same time, you know, it's one of those things where, well, now it's affected the research to your next vehicle, and then it's going to affect your SL income, and then people are going to have less SL, and then they're going to get annoyed, and yeah, it's an interesting balance. So then we have Elias. So I've been playing Naval recently for the events, and honestly, they need to fix HE. If I remember correctly, they changed it so people would have a reason to fire APE, which is fair, but at the same time, destroyers shouldn't be surviving multiple 8-inch salvos from a Norfolk or give everything AP stock. Sure. I mean, they change how Naval DMs work every update. So it's really hard to keep like up with the changes. Like they fundamentally change how shells work and how armor works, like every major update for Naval. Like the last ones they did like how like engines and boilers and stuff like that take damage. They changed the crew interchangeability for, you know, blue water stuff and also some coastal stuff, and they also changed how much damage certain types of shells do. So, like, right now, it might be really annoying for the individual to, like, use specific things. But also, since it's been like this for, like, 2 years, where every major update they do massive sweeping changes to how damage works in Naval, it's really hard to keep track of it. So all you got to do is wait a few months and it'll probably be completely different. What do I think about the F5C? It's a very powerful premium. Does its job very well, limited in armament, which is why it's not exactly noob friendly compared to a bunch of other things, even though it has flight characteristics which should mean it's a much higher BR than it is. So in the good person's hands, it'll do well. In a rough person's hands, it will not. Do-do-do. Right. Then we have Gencha. What if you could get like an amount of spawn points in a heavy tank for ricochets or hits that didn't kill the crew? I feel like heavy tanks and tank destroyers should get a bonus, but if it's like a percentage thing, I feel like a World of Tanks thing. But if it was actual gameplay mechanics like spotting, I think SPGs should get spotting for planes. Well, they added in the air alert stuff, but that's available for everybody, right? I mean, I would rather stuff like if SPGs are massively affected by planes, I would personally want obviously them to be able to do something about them. They technically already do these like percentage things in the way that you don't think about them. So have a look at like the airstrike modification for light tanks. That's a percentage thing, right? Like if you have a look at visibility and how that works, that's a percentage thing. Everything is technically a percentage thing. It is just how it is shown on the screen to you. Like that's pretty much it. I don't know why AJ is going nuts, but he's going nuts. So it's just the way that it's kind of shown. Like so, everything is percentage based in its own way. The tanking hits and ricochets for spawn points. I mean that used to actually be in the game, like 1 to 2 to 3 years ago, and they removed it because what people would do, while using scripts is they would. I'm gonna check the bloody dog because he won't shut up. I'll be right. Right, I'm back. There is literally nothing wrong with the dog. He's just being an ass. Welcome to AJ between the hours of 11 a.m. and 2. He just doesn't... he just barks. No idea why. Just feels like it. Something wrong with him. Right, anyway. What was the thing? What are we doing? Oh yeah, so the reason... like heavy tanks or just any tanks, they used to actually get points from being shot. That was like a standard thing that would happen, during the time. And the reason they removed it is because, once again, people were scripting, and it was a way that they could play reserve vehicles or play any vehicles which have low repair costs, and then just drive into the enemy, get shot a bunch of times, and get a bunch of spawn, leave the game, and then just keep doing that over and over again. So over the last few years, they've removed all of what would be classed as the passive ways of gaining RP and SL because of botting. And yeah, once again, it literally all leads back to the core, you know. And is it a surprise? No. But you know, once you actually start thinking about why decisions are made instead of how it personally affects you, things start making a lot of sense, you know. Can I show the dog? No. I showed him last week. He's just being a twat today. He's a little Frenchie. Let's see. So we have Das Chaos. Maybe make it so you can capture the enemy spawn when you have all points claimed. I mean, when the whole enemy team collapses, then they fail to survive and you can end the map faster. But maybe both the spawn points need to be captured. Why? Why bother? If you've already capped everything and the enemy team has pretty much given up, then you've already won. So, like, if there's still, like, an enemy player somewhere, you can either, like, search them out or just chill for a bit. It doesn't have to be high-tailed, high action all the time. Not required. Then we have Ham Pork Gamer. Honestly, what if vehicles are separated like how Naval is? Because it would be cool to have modern-day tanks really quick. And if they keep adding modern vehicles, they should at least make it easier to grind, though it may not make the money for them other than adding a premium beginner pack vehicle from each nation. The tree doesn't have to be separated, it's just that some people would be going into War Thunder thinking they would play the modern vehicles and they would be a slog through to grind. Not counting Naval, which you have a choice to go through the boats. Not all new players want to slog through the grind and get at least a Cold War vehicle. Even if you pay, there's still a lot of progression you'll have to do. Sounds good. If you don't want to grind but you want a Cold War vehicle, I recommend researching the PBV 301 or the Swedish tech tree, because at rank 2 and 3 there's a metric ton of Cold War vehicles. So, issues with this is the same issues that we've talked about many separate times. Trying to do anything by era, whether it is ranks, whether it is BRs, whether it is anything like this, is dumb, unfounded, and stupid. The reason for this is because different vehicles, depending on not when they were made, but what characteristics they were designed for, or abilities, or even doctrine that they were designed for, are going to be completely different to the same vehicles that were designed around the same time. Once again, PBV 301, PVKV 2 and 3, 4, and even 1. Even stuff such as like more modernized STRVs or STRFs, and that's just looking at one tech tree and not even thinking about any of the other ones. So you've got all of those problems which are just kind of sat there. Stuff like the AKV 103, even once again in the same tech tree. I can talk about all the different tech trees. It's just much easier to just keep bringing up Sweden because it's such a egregious example. So in a scenario where you put a line between what is a World War II vehicle and what is a Cold War vehicle, you are going to completely screw parts of the matchmaking in order to do so. Also, at the same time, the reason why they did this in Naval is because nobody was playing Naval. They had to do drastic changes or decisions to try and increase the player count, because otherwise the game mode was going to die. Because it was dying. It was one of the only areas of the game which was depreciating and didn't have another area to stand on. The thing about helicopters, for example, is helicopters always had their own PvP mode, but they had uses in ground forces. Naval is a standalone mode by itself. It doesn't include any other parts of the game apart from aviation, which is, you know, keyed in with everything else. So you had a situation where you had a bunch of people who came together, said that they didn't want to grind through the coastal stuff, therefore they weren't going to play, therefore they had to add a split between the fleets to make people basically play. And it worked. You know, it was positive for progress, and overall it was great. The reason why they don't or won't do it for ground is because it has a good enough large player base to not do it, right? the change was made out of necessity. It wasn't made to like make the grind easier for people or whatever. It was because the game mode was literally dying, and most of the teams that you faced were just bots. And I don't mean like player bots, I mean gaijin bots, because they were populating the mode to try and get people into matches so they weren't stuck there for 10 to 15 minutes not being able to play. So stuff like ground doesn't have that issue. There is also negatives to the system, which were brought up at the time, not by me much, but actually by a few other people. The first massive negative with the system is now your premium vehicles have lost half their value. So if you have, let's say, a rank 5 premium, it can only be used to research, and it's a Cold War vehicle, it can only be used to research whatever ranks of the Cold War area of the tech tree that you've put it in, because technically the research is separate compared to, you know, the whole setup. The other issue with it is now you've made some vehicles, like end-of-the-line World War II vehicles, so let's say like the T-34 for America, for example, like now you've just made that vehicle 380,000 RP to be able to research, which is what has happened with high-tier coastal, when nobody grinds out those vehicles because it takes years. And why would you? Because you can literally just play a vehicle which is slightly better than it, and also you only need to grind like 8,000 RP, and it's pretty much the same like BR as well. So there is absolutely no reason in the world to play that other vehicle, apart from if you are for some reason a coastal savant. So the idea that this system has only benefits is wrong. It actually has some pretty aggressive negatives that are just completely forgotten about in the grand scheme of things, because it's easier to do so because it doesn't fit the narrative. So it's just another research botting thing again. So yeah, it's just how it is. Like I don't know how else to put it. The change doesn't need to be made because the game mode isn't dying, so therefore it won't be made. And also, over the time period, they have made research so easy to get up the tech trees now in many of the different ones, which is fantastic. And also, they're making it much easier in the coming area. So hopefully it is, once again, just easier. Then we have Legend B. Ooh. Right, there we go. Just trying to keep this thing in the air. So then we have Legend B. This makes no sense. All the SPAs at 10.0 to 10.3 didn't go up in BR, while SPAs from 10.7 and 11.7 got up alongside every other vehicle, aircraft and helicopter. If I could say SPAs are still way easier to play because of their 110 spawn cost compared to aircraft and their ability to automatically destroy a team of enemy aircraft in down tiers. Okay, fine. Like, I mean, all of those SPAs, like from 10.7 to 11.7 and 10.0 to 10.3, went up previously in the old BR changes. Just like all the other vehicles went up too. Like, that's the thing. Like, the Stormer went up. Which is why it still doesn't have a lineup, right? So, but the simple fact is, like, my opinion on these things, is I would rather SPAA be in a more positive position than CAS, because an SPAA cannot fully dominate a game by itself, where CAS elements definitely can. So I've always preferred in the ground game mode for aircraft to be in a slightly worse position than the ground vehicles, because otherwise it's very tough to play. So we have Clinton J. Fox. Howdy, Tech. Howdy. I'm working on my second joint here, so roll with me on this one. It might be a high idea. Here we fucking go. What if heavy tanks rank 3 and above gained a research module for calling in aggressive AI planes? It could be anti-CAS in the form of friendly AI interceptors or strike fighters requested to target human players. But should the skies be clear, only then would they target spotted ground vehicles in the area around where someone requests aviation support through the radio. You could also have the option to call in frontline bombers to harass enemy ground vehicles, or long-range bombers for a carpet bombing run in a specific line on a attack on a map. I mean, this is very FPS-y. No, is probably the best way of putting it. These ideas wouldn't work. It is definitely a ganja guess. Well, there's a little bit extra, so to balance it out for folks not playing heavies, shooting down the airplanes would count to the standard 100 tickets off the score, as well as toward daily quests. They just exist until they crashed or were shot down, but would work on a time schedule of shot down or run out of ammo to RTB. Once the plane lands at the base, it would disappear. Gaijin could even use the already in place crew skills of the machine gunner's artillery call time and accuracy, while also using the same interface to call artillery. Anyways, thanks for taking time to do this. Glad I got mine in relatively early this time. That's all good. The simple problem with this is that there we go. Without even mentioning anything else, we can mention the fact that Gaijin AI, like when it comes to the ones that they've created and put into the game, is terrible. If you go into mission editor, test drive mission editor, air-to-air combat stuff, right? If you do that, and you play through those things, you realize how bad the AI can be, even on what is classed as like an expert crew, or like a professional crew, or whatever you want to call it. It's way too easy to abuse, and hasn't really had a ton of changes over the years, making it very lackluster compared to many other nations. Or not nations, but sorry, many other games. So if you would first of all need to have a fundamental change in how AI works in the game, and also an improvement of it. If that happened, sounds good, you know, could actually work pretty well. Like as an idea, I don't know about the whole bringing in like a squadron. Like it sounds really nice, but also sounds like let's say you have like 2 or 3 players, so you got like nine vehicles like running around the air like super quickly. So yeah, it's I'm not sure about that one, but maybe bringing in like a recon plane or some kind of like AI vehicle to traverse over the place, just to kind of give you like a swipe on the map. Seems like a fun idea to have, but I wouldn't once again want them to make them active. I'd want to make them passive, because whenever they add active AI into the game, it never works. Like it's either too good or too bad. So like just think about like the columns, right? Like the ground columns that have been added, the Gepards and the Sergeant Yorks and all that. Hey, Ball Executioner, nice to see you. Like they've been through so many changes and it's a bit rough. Do air tanks still drive into walls and try to climb them in customs? Yeah. Yeah, they also bounce. But happy Sunday, man. The grind's going well. We're mostly through our pilot one, and we'll obviously start a naval one pretty soon. What vehicle in War Thunder do you enjoy the most and why? T92, mobility and variety. So we have Braden Murphy. Oops. Which Gaijin would replace the moderators on their forum report and issue page? I recently put forward that they add a bunch of rounds. That the HSDVL had, and fix the round that it has in game in order to match a bunch of historical documents. They wouldn't even allow it to be put through the devs because it was basically a bug report, even though it wasn't. I reported it as a bug, and some asshole immediately shut it down because the fictional penetration values were reported 3 years ago by Spookston. The fact that gadget moderators have the audacity to claim that they care about historical accuracy is laughable, and their decisions feel extremely slanted to favor Russian top tier in this regard. 2 points. The first one, so all shells were standardized a long time ago with either the Demar formula or the Lanzodemat formula. So the historical values of shells doesn't matter. Hasn't done for a very long time. Maybe 3 to 4 years now. What matters is their general characteristics in terms of their mass and whatever is plugged into the equation to give them the penetration values in the game. So penetration values from tests, it doesn't matter. It was seen that it was better to standardize all rounds instead of because obviously the different the different testing environments were different depending on what was looked at. So it was better for everything to have the same standard, which are the equations. The other thing about adding various rounds to vehicles, rounds are used as a balancing factor. So pretty much no vehicle in the game. Why does this keep moving? Do I need to fix my stand? No vehicle in the game has access to all of the rounds that it could use historically. And this is by design, because they use the type of rounds that a vehicle has as a balancing factor. What this means is that if a vehicle is... so look at the Magacs, right? So a lot of the Magacs, or the M60s, they all have the 105. But they don't all get access to the same munitions, even though they're using exactly the same gun. And that is because of what we just talked about. Like, it's a factor to try and change the BRs of vehicles or their efficiencies, because if they add everything that they can to a vehicle, it might put it at a BR which doesn't really suit it. So, for example, the IPM-1, right? So the IPM-1, they upped its BR, and then they were worried about it being upped, so they gave it a mega round, and then it had to go up again because it became better than the standard M1A1, and that's pretty much how it goes. So they're very careful on what rounds they add to what. So it's not a historical issue, it's a game balance issue. They should have explained that to you, and if they didn't, then that's no good. So then we have the next one. This is from Saiyan Wannabe. Any idea when he talks about support helis? That's the part that might be interesting. Well, there's timestamps now. Or you could do what this is supposed to be, which is it's supposed to be like a podcast. And just listen to it and chill and enjoy it. Or maybe take the ADD meds. That could also be something. I don't know. Who knows? There we go. Right, sorry. Just gotta focus it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da. Yeah. Ooh, baby, do you know what I want? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. You can't heaven just comes first. Ooh, in heaven is a place on earth. Such a good song. Okay. Alright, next one. From Nathan Weigel. Or Weigel. I think the real solution for spawn camping is just make spawn immunity last much longer, or even indefinitely until the player actually leaves the spawn area. There would have to be an exception for SPAs, obviously, or they'd abuse it. It wouldn't just be SPAs that abuse it. It would be a lot of people. Hey, Imogen, nice to see you. Do you think the French MICA radar missile will be added anytime soon? I have absolutely no idea its capabilities, but sure. Yeah, a system, if you give people invulnerability in any way, in that case, it will just be heavily abused. There'll just be people who literally just spawn in their spawn and then just won't move the whole match. And then they'll just wait for their team to lose and then farm kills. You would get people like that because there's a ton of people who are way too invested in their KDA for no apparent reason, and therefore, they'll abuse the system. And invincibility in games is ripe for abuse. So we have Bruce R1. Everyone talks about subtrees for Italy and Japan, never so much what subtree would best fit to help France for some reason. Thoughts? Personally, I'd be partial to what Spain could bring in all three environments. Switzerland for France is probably the best one. Any of North Africa. They could even add Vietnam if you wanted to be spicy. But yeah, there's a lot of vehicles that were farmed out by France to other nations, or tried to. France actually is a really cool nation in terms of manufacturing, especially post Second World War. They really focused on the export market with many of their different vehicles. So yeah, they actually have a ton of places which bought a bunch of their exported stuff. So yeah, there's a ton of options, like a bunch of like one-off or two-off vehicles, but then also stuff such as I said, like Switzerland. Switzerland makes the most sense for France out of the bunch. And Switzerland has a lot to offer as a nation too, so be cool to see. Then we have P Mustang, meant to say P61C, but yeah, thanks for the tips, all good. That's what we're here for. So we have Ulted Tierson. Sounds like a Viking. Howdy, TEC. Howdy. Hope you're doing well. Alive and kicking, at least right now. Excellent Canadian stuff would be great to fill out the French gaps. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Excellent vids. Really helped the event grind listening to your stuff. Thanks. Anytime. This is the first crafting seasonal event I've done. I ground out the F4D. Pretty crap, honestly, in game. Honestly. But she's always caught my eye and have to have one in my virtual collection. I mean, I think it's a beautiful aircraft. The Mini Dorito. I think it's really cool. Big fan of it. Let's just realize my whole team's dead again. How far is he away? Okay, I have time to read. But she's always caught my eye, so I'd figure I'd grind the SEO 25 because I'm far off getting one. This one is going to be much smoother for me than ones in the past. Just make him move. There we go. Than ones in the past, though I found my sweet spot for grinding air events. So many goddamn guns. Fighters, backups, full lineups, head-ons, and turn fights in Arcade 3763 are about 2k through 4k each 15 minutes. Tossing in a few things. I haven't spaded yet from wherever. Especially the crap I did that got the extinguishers added, which is obnoxious, seeing how 99% of it I'll probably never play again. And has one engine anyway. Seriously, Gaijin, who in the 14 trillion years future of the universe? Are you still after me? No. Universe is ever going to use the extinguisher. On the 100 plus rank 1 and 2 single engine fighters, I have to go through and spade again. Anyway, sorry for the long one. Good hunting and everyone listening. That's all good. Yeah, I think arcade is usually the way to go for these score things. You can get way more score, right? In arcade. The reason why I play the game modes I do is because I'm the most comfortable with them, and I usually have a bit more time than the average person, so I don't have to go too ham on the the getting it done as efficiently as possible. But no, glad that the event's going well, and at the same time, the EFS thing was annoying and still is annoying. I actually yesterday while doing the air marker distinction, I ended up respading like 7 planes, because they added not just EFS but also napalm or incendiary ammunition and all of that stuff. So at least we kind of got that done. I'm so happy they didn't add like snake eyes as a modification. Like, can you imagine if they'd done that? That would have been the 3rd time in a year where you'd have to respade like a bunch of different vehicles. I mean, I've already had to do it twice, and as somebody who likes spading things and kind of keeping them spaded, having to constantly revisit stuff that I've already played is kind of annoying. So hopefully in the future this is improved. Then we have Paulie D again. TEC, I don't think SPGs should get the infantry squad. That should go to IFVs. To balance, take scouting away from ISVs and give it to SPGs. As you point out, at 940, SPGs are meant to hunker down and watch an avenue of approach. Yeah, sure, why not? I'd be fine with that. It's just the major issue I have with IFVs is they don't do anything bad right now. Like, they pretty much have everything you would want in a vehicle, and usually at a lower BR than many others. So, if you keep adding on more mechanics to them, then obviously that's not great. But moving around the mechanics like that, yeah, I'd be fine with that. That I think that's actually a good idea. So I'm down for that. Turn down for what? Do. So then we have Renesis Actual. So we have, I'll play Devil's Advocate. Uh-oh, dangerous, don't do that. People might take you seriously. I'll play Devil's Advocate and say it's equally stupid that ground vehicles don't render outside SPAA range, which makes it rather annoying getting all the points needed for high-tech CAS, only to get screwed by a Panther, Ito, Florakrad that you can't see. There's a lot of things that need improved in the game. To a point, I do agree, but also, as I said to the previous thing, it's the whole thing about how I would rather it be in the favor of the AA instead of the CAS, because I've been around when CAS was incredibly broken. Way more broken than it is now, by the way. Before radar AAs existed and before all of these things existed. There was a time in the game where HVARs, HVARs, the rockets, they one-shot tanks. They basically hull broke them. So if you could bring if you're on a Sabre and you could bring 18 of them, or if you're on, I don't know, a Hellcat and you could bring 6 of them, you could donk 9 to 3 vehicles or even more than that just by landing the rockets near them or on them. That was incredibly insane. And once again, no radars to deal with them because radar SPAs didn't exist, and no HUVT. All you had was 50 cals. So good luck at the end of the day. Good luck, Godspeed. So yeah, CAS nowadays is in a better position than it was. But my god, it's kind of crazy to think about the old days. But yeah, the rendering thing I feel like is going to be a constant issue when it comes to War Thunder, and it's just down to first of all, the cheating stuff, but also just the goddamn, what's the word I'm looking for? Performance, that's the one. So as someone who plays a decent amount of other games, especially RTSs, once you open up more of the map, think about Total War, for example, right? If you play Total War and you're dealing with the Total War map, the more that you open, the more laggy everything gets and the more actions are happening and everything kind of goes a bit nuts, right? And it basically means that you when it comes to what you're seeing, everything kind of just falls apart. And your game and your computer start frying itself, which ain't very fun, just in general. So I feel that is something that a lot of games kind of don't seem to care too much about, because they're more designed for the idea of the whole experience of it. But a lot of one of the big things that War Thunder has is you can play it on a ton of different machines in a ton of different places. So if you remove that, you're basically removing a percentage of your player base, which is going to go and play other stuff, right? So yeah, kind of sucks in that regard. But I think also, if they could find a fix to that, that would be fantastic. It really would. Hopefully they do. So we have Owen Schultz. I think that a great but not complete fix for CAS would be the removal of airfields, no rearming, no AI flak. Oh. So you just got what you got? What this would hopefully achieve is that it would make aircraft more of a one-time use asset, where you would have to fly defensively and carefully choose your target. While this would fix revenge bombing, it would cut down on a number of other CAS-based issues. I mean, technically yes, I think it would. But also, I've got to be honest. How many times does a vehicle like use all of its ordnance and then go and rearm and then like hit you again? Like it obviously would help, right? Because that does happen. But what are the percentages, or what are the percentage chance of something like that happening compared to what is like the more standard thing, which is, you know, people just appearing with a massive amount of ordnance and then just annihilating you? Like, if you think about, I don't know, like the high tiers where most people complain, like a Ka-52, for example. A Ka-52 has 12 Vickers, right? So it can fire 12 Vickers before landing. How many of them fire all of them and then land and then go again? I think my thoughts would be not like a metric ton, right? But even like a Stuka, no mercy. Like, so the amount of time it takes a Stuka to drop its bomb and then go back to base and then come back again, it's a long time. Like, it's really not a short time at all. So for me, when I think about stuff like that, I think about the amount of time it takes to like go and rearm and sort it out, and it's a really long time. So I'm not sure. It would obviously have an effect. I don't think the effect would be a huge one. You would just see more people like cannoning into the ground and stuff. I think. I mean, a way to test this, which would be cool, and I'd be down for, is put it in, but like have like a safe zone or have like an airfield that you can land at and J out, so you don't have to pay the repair cost. But yeah, it's kind of a cool idea. Then we have Berkey Ilmaz. Avery should go 0.3 or 0.7 higher. Well, yeah, I mean they didn't, did they? The Averys didn't go up. None of the donkey machines went up, which is just kind of interesting to see, you know? Like, it's one of those sets of vehicles that didn't really get changed. Pretty interesting, pretty quirky. Maybe they weren't doing as well as people thought. Don't know. So now we have Bam Bam once again. Nice to see. When you read the years ago comments, it reminded me of the scene from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the tunnel scene. And we just keep going and going, rowing. That one? That's a pretty good one. I like it. Also, side note on the Russian bias isn't from the game itself, but the misinformation that the Russians themselves lie on their vehicles' capabilities. But even them, most of the vehicles in the game, I think are fine. I don't really think there's Russian bias to the extent to the commentator made. And the A3 Bradley and Sheridan, I think, should be able to float if the BMPs can float. But what do you think about the game Broken Arrow? Oops, sorry. Let's just fix this. There we go. Wait, was it this one? Oh no. This one. My bad. I can't mute. Never mind. So the first thing, I always take pretty much every nation's kind of like statistics with a grain of salt, especially private companies, since they're trying to sell a product, right? So I do agree that a lot of numbers, like, I mean, we're seeing it in like the conflict right now, right? Like the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We're seeing how like both sides or every side is, it's like selective uses of numbers or selective like highlighting of statistics. I'm really hoping that with everything that's going on, if people have access to all of the information, it doesn't show people what the truth is, but it shows people how the truth is manipulated, right? And this if once you understand that, you then start trying to apply those ideas to every area, and you realize what's kind of going on. And some people go straight to nihilism, which I think is not a good idea. I'll never believe in nihilism. Like, I think it's just it's a horrible way to kind of remove responsibility from oneself. But it can also make people quite depressed and dark about what's going on. Or you can just kind of, live in the same place that you are, realize that none of this stuff truly affects you in the way that you think it does, and then kind of push on from that, and realize that everybody's doing it. So you just have to make sure, to understand that when you look at pretty much anything else. So for me, in the regards of like that stuff, yes, one side is lying. Yes, when it comes to vehicles, everybody else is not fully telling the truth about things. So it's just kind of how it is, right? For the other parts, I think the thing about the Bradley and the Sheridan is they need like an external kit, don't they? Like they need an external kit in order to float. So it isn't like the BMP, it can float by itself. Like it has the thing on the front, and it's designed to be amphibious, where the Sheridan needs like an additional kit. Um, um, it's like it needs, what's the word? It needs like an additional add-on to make them float, right? So maybe you could be able to research it and then put it on the vehicle. Like I'd be fine with that. That would be pretty cool. But at least right now that's not the case. And Broken Arrow? I mean, Broken Arrow as an idea I actually really like. I think it's really cool. Played the demo. It was really hard, I've got to say. But the way that I see Broken Arrow is what Wargame Red Dragon should have become, at least from the demo, right? So I see Broken Arrow as a full spiritual successor to what Wargame should have become. But instead it went into the Warno thing, and it's looking pretty rough, right? Hey, Gambling and Zillium, nice to see you. So I have very high hopes for it. I'm going to play it when it comes out. But also, I'm not great at games like that, especially ones which put time limits on things, like the demo did, like the last part. So I'm probably going to get a few other people's help in to help out with it. Like, give me ideas of what to do. But I'm looking forward to playing it, especially if it's single-player campaign focused. It kind of reminds me of... Gates of Hell, right? So you have Call to Arms Gates of Hell, Ostfront. That game, like Men of War Assault Squad 2, was an insanely good game, and still is. Like, you can play it now and it's fantastic. It still works fantastically, it's got great mod support, it's got all that great stuff going on, right? Like, Gates of Hell was a spiritual successor to that, brought in a bunch of new mechanics and kind of improved on what was going on, but it's also made by separate people, right? And now you have Men of War 2, which is coming in, which is once again a successor to Men of War, trying to change different things up, and you have like this whole competition between like the two sides. And I think that's kind of cool, and I like the fact that that exists, and hopefully it can push innovation, so therefore both sides prosper. And as a consumer, as somebody who likes these games, that's really good, because now I get 2 cool games instead of 1, and two sets of foundation which are the same, but are set up by different future philosophies, which is cool. So, you know, I like that. I'm a fan. Yeah, so that's nice. Yeah, it's a reimagination of World in Conflict, which, you know, is also a very good game series and very fun. They actually gave a World in Conflict. They gave one of them away like a while ago on Uplay. Can't remember when it was, but it was, you know, always nice to play. I still remember Tom Clancy's End War? God damn. That one was interesting. But yeah, looking forward to Broken Arrow, looking forward to Manowar 2, looking forward to Gates of Hell's Western Front expansion. And it's funny how it's called. It's going to be called Gates of Hell Ostfront, Western Front. It's just funny how things go, you know. Yeah, End War didn't really work very well, but it added in a lot of ideas which I thought were really cool, and the voice commands were nice when they worked. Then we have Daniel Rex. Hey Tech, hi. Thanks for the response. Do you think Oceana servers ever come, as this area of the world expanding, not like 5 years ago when Gajin said there's not enough Oceana players, because for an Australian, its ping on a good day is 200 and bad is 430. Yeah, I've thought about this quite a lot, because it was ideas which were brought up a decent amount of time for, you know, well, a decent amount of time. And my tongue-in-cheek response to it, that is actually true, and, you know, is the way that this goes, is areas of the world who want more support in that way need to breed more. And it's pretty much as simple as that. The amount of demand in the region is not high enough in order to necessitate a expansion into it server-wise, you know. Even the SCA servers, like, which technically cover a higher population base, still aren't really highly demanded, right? So, if you're looking at expansion as, like, a company, you want to expand into areas that have either got high potential of player base or just high populations that you can advertise to. So places like India, or even stuff like South America or the west coast of the US, for the same reasons, right? So, from an individual perspective, it would be really nice if they added stuff like Australian servers, because that part of the world kind of gets forgotten about when it comes to gaming in general. Like World of Tanks used to run, I don't know if they still do, but they used to run a server for Australia which was only available certain times of the week, because it just wasn't economical to run it all the times of the week. And even then, I'm pretty sure it shut down, so it didn't work, right? So it's just the fact that it's not a fiscally positive decision, which it sucks, because that means that people are negatively affected by something that's out of their control because of where they are. And I don't think anybody would move country for a video game unless, you know, there was monetary incentive there or something like that. So then we have line it up right. There we go. Khan Artist with Bobo Rosso. The only people that like you maps and want them are the ones with strong spaded vehicles who can just go to overpowered sniping spots and take advantage of people that aren't spaded, just farming easy kills. Yes. There is another set of people though. I'll just land first and then we'll go through the rest. Oh, there you go. I.e. having good thermals, darts and LR. and just getting to sit there and pop shot after shot across the map at unsuspecting victims without some or all of those, aka BVM players. Nobody else wants them, they're entirely unfun, especially when stock. Massively agree. But as I said, there is actually another set of people who also want them, and they're the more dangerous set. So the first set of people are the ones who just want to abuse other players. And that's actually standard. You know, you're always going to have those in specific games, which is why it is always a bad idea to balance by what competitive players want. Because you basically screw over the 99.9% for the minor percentage, right? Which obviously isn't great. So that's a bit of a problem. The other thing, or the other set of players who also want to have a situation like that is the historical players. So the guys who believe that historically tanks will just one-on-one fight each other from range, because that's what their doctrine is designed to do, without thinking about any other reason why their doctrine is designed like that. So yeah, that is the more dangerous set of people, because they're like the historical, like, you know, the game should mimic historical stuff as close as it can. Stay away from those people. They're really dangerous and will just break games, or just will make it for the minority. So then we have William Merben Black. Hey Tech, hi. I have an account that I made on Xbox and recently got a gaming laptop. Sounds bad, but I had to get a beefy laptop for college. I'm going for engineering. Good luck, Godspeed. Hopefully it goes well. I went for engineering too. Ended up in sciences. Found it a lot easier. But I'm glad that people are going into that. So, you know, keep me updated. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully it does good. You know, it's nice to always see people succeed when it comes to stuff. Is there a current way to transfer my account from Xbox to PC so I can gain access to the gadget market and sales and whatnot? Thank you for your wisdoms. Have a great day and take care. Of course I will. You too. As I said, hopefully it all goes well. Keep me updated. So, no, I don't think there is. If I remember, they have a system which they bring in every once in a while where you can transfer accounts from the consoles to the PC, but it's only around at specific times. And in War Thunder's history, I think it's like happened 2 or 3 times, so it's not something that's available all the time. The best person to ask on this is somebody like Grom Voini, who is on the War Thunder forums, and they can kind of help you with that setup, right? Like those are the guys that will be able to help you out. But I'm pretty sure the answer is no at the moment, which obviously sucks, because, you know, you want people to have as much mobility, not just in War Thunder, but also in life, as they can. So hopefully in the future that can kind of be solved. Well, good luck. Let's just gonna bonk this guy real quick. At least try to. What even is that thing? Is it 19? Sorry, I just want to make sure this guy goes. He's gotta go! Before we move on to the next one. I'm really struggling. There we go. He'll be dead now. Yeah. None of those hit. Sad. So the next one is Pleismeister. All I need from Guy Jubals right now is removing botting. Well, there aren't many people for botting, so I'm sure it will be fixed. Or not fixed, but reduced. And we'll have to see as that goes on. Oh, it's an MPK. That's kind of cool. But yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's like, I want reduced grind. Yeah, so does everybody. So, you know, I'm going to take a very controversial stance right now. Reduce the grind. Thank you. Applause. Then we have Genscher again. Why does the HSTVL not get better rounds such as HEP, HE? The original APHE SDS round was depleted uranium, which said to be on par with the 105, blah, 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 blah. We actually talked about this in an earlier comment. Lands order map formula, balance. That's pretty much it. Those two factors are taken into account every time. I don't know why people only focus on the HSTVL when it comes to this stuff. Like, even in American vehicles, there's a ton of American vehicles that don't have access to all their rounds. But for some reason, the HSTVL is the one which is always constantly talked about. As if, like, nothing else has this issue. And also, as I said, like, these points always come from an area of ignorance, which is completely fine because not everybody has to always be, like, clued into War Thunder all the time. Like my silly asses. But, you know, it's just, it's balance and it's like standardization, you know, it's just how it is. Alright, let's go here. So then we have Shadow Dweller again. Canada tanks and planes should be added to Britain and US. Some of the smaller nations should just be added to the nations, not just one nation. I mean, sure, as long as people don't get sick of the grind, because, you know, copy-paste and all that. And we have Magenta Television. CAS is always broken. Sure, why not? Not really a lot I can do with that statement. And then we have C-76. Oh boy, it's a long one. Let's see. I'll just shoot a few first. Time to rickety wreck. Because this one's pretty fun, actually. If you've never played the SKR-7, highly recommend it. You'll have a great time. You will go to hell, though. You know, just as a point. Like this, playing this vehicle does mean that you end up in hell. Let's see. And what is the issue of having RBEC over the weekend, even if a small minority is playing it? If it's a small minority playing it, then they aren't taking away from the player pool the standard mode. And if there is a small minority playing it, then there won't be that many battles, meaning there's not much of a server impact either. Also, they wouldn't need to do any extra development cost, as A, they already had it, and B, they can just take the lessons, programming, etc. from SB for improvements. The difference with control and camera is not enough that SB improvements are at risk of not matching with RB control cameras, so there are no to minimal negative points of just adding it over the weekend and leaving it running on its own. Totally agree about War Thunder being about priority. On any updated take yet, since your initial take a few videos ago on turning on auto repair on and off as a premium player. I've been screwing around with it. I would turn it on, basically. I think overall, unless you're playing vehicles that you're very confident in, just turn it on. Like sometimes you just get blasted in vehicles, and over this like period where I've been playing like, you know, nations for or I've been playing like lineups for the stars, it's been much easier to play and gain SL with it on, just because, you know, there are matches where you just get bongoed and that just saves SL. Like over the past week, I mean, I don't know how much it was, and obviously you can't see it, but I mean, I've gained about 7 million SL in a week. so and that's from playing like stuff I'm comfortable with, but also at the same time with the new economy system, you know, it is kind of nuts. So yeah, like a few weeks ago I was at 60 million and now I'm at 69. But also at the same time, I haven't really been like buying many vehicles. Like, you know, I've been playing like more mid-tier stuff for the event, but still, that's kind of crazy. The other thing about the RRBC thing, I mean, sure, yeah, like if it doesn't have as much, or if it doesn't have any impact because of the small set of people who would enjoy it or whatever, then yeah, why not? Like, put it as an event every so often and then just kind of set it up like that. From there, but then you could say that about a lot of different things, but I'm sure there's like a cost analysis thing you could do on this point. Like, or Gaijin, well, Gaijin obviously would do it right, but like, and it's very hard, at least from my point of view, to be able to like make a cost-based thing, because I don't know the numbers behind it fully. I just know what I saw, and I can also look by how many people are actually talking about these things and discussing them as like a minor thing compared to the major stuff. But if there is enough people there to make it function, but also not cost anything, and also make it so there is not a lot of effort that needs to be put into it, then yeah, sure, why not? Like, just put it in and sort it out. Like, to me, that sounds good, and I think overall that should be pushed forward with. So yeah, let's do it. Go crazy. Sounds good to me. So we have Ivan BNV. The real question is KV2 for Sweden when? Did Sweden use a KV2? Or did Finland use a KV2? I mean, what I would like is I would want the KV1B to be added to Finland in the Swedish tech tree. So then we could actually have a balanced vehicle in the... because they'd have to force the BR upwards, which is something that, you know, should have been done a long time ago with the KV1B and E. But yeah, if the vehicle was used by the Finnish, yeah, go crazy. Why not? Have a bit of fun, you know. The KV2 is one of those that isn't like a busted vehicle or anything. It's just a bit of fun. So let's get it done. Yeah, put the KVs in the UK tech tree and it'll instantly go up to 5-0. Churchill sadness. So then we have IHIP. That's another long one, so just let me shoot this guy a little bit, and then we'll let our guns reload. Right, there we go. Guns reloading. So my 2 cents as a new player. CAS does not work in this game for the same reason SPGs don't work in water tanks and aircraft carriers don't work in water warships. They're extremely difficult to counter, and this is not real life war where unfairness is required to win. War Thunder has its worst as a single bomb or missile or rocket salvo can destroy a tank. No wonder tank players are so frustrated, adding to that players being petty little shits and actively practicing revenge bombing when they spawn in planes, and one can guess the result. Up to a point, but the difference, so the difference in a game like War Thunder to like the wargaming games or any other games is the ability to respawn, right? So if you get countered by a CAS plane in ground, you can then respawn in a plane to deal with them. So the counter to the plane is another plane or an SPAA or whatever you're most proficient in when it comes to it. And this is an idea, especially low tier, I've been kind of outspoken about during the years. If you win an initial engagement on the ground, right? So let's say you win it, and then you're 1-0 up in that scenario, right? Like if we don't look at anything else, you're 1-0 up in that fight. Yeah? So if you're 1-0 up in that fight, and they come and CAS you or revenge bomb you, then the situation is still only a 1-1. Plus, you could have influenced more stuff when they were coming in, and maybe they also influence more stuff while they're in a plane. Yeah? So, in this scenario, like, a vehicle has the opportunity as a CAS element to be able to do more, but you also have the ability to respond. You know, which is one of those things which is kind of hard to understand because you kind of get stuck in the moment and just die, right? And that doesn't feel good. Like, it feels really bad. So if you, as an individual, die to revenge cast after killing the person, then it's a 1-1 and you have the opportunity to respond, meaning that you can make it a 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, while they go off and kill other people and could increase their score too. But it basically puts you in a positive scenario if you've won the initial battle, right? Now, I know it's not as simplistic as that because there's a bunch of other factors that turn up, but for me, like, that's the way that I see it, right? And that's the way that, at least for me, like, the scenario goes. So, yeah, it's just kind of how it is. Next point. Oh no, sorry. Naval is on life support until Gaijin solves the bot issue. And you can bet that they will not, because bot accounts need at least 1 premium to grind, which means free money. Air battles will probably end up the same. At least at tiers where bot grinding is easy, CJ 288 spam. Ground battles is already there with the Derivatia spam at high tiers. Gaijin trying to solve this with a report function goes nowhere. New player. So for me, the way that I see this stuff, you don't need a premium to efficiently grind bots. If you knew about the naval stuff, right? And this is... People were not just using premiums to grind naval with bots. Most of the people, or most of the things that actually used bots were reserve naval vehicles. So stuff like the fronts that you actually see here. So the idea that the vehicles which were, used the most were the ones that, needed to buy, or were needed to buy, is not true. I don't know what else to say in that regard. The next thing as well is Gaijin literally put out a post where they talked about the fact that they don't actually benefit from bots, because the way that most of the time when they're buying like premiums and stuff like that, they're using fraudulent ways of purchasing stuff. And what that means is you have a situation where if stuff is used fraudulently to purchase stuff, then technically they actually lose money on the purchase, because then it gets refunded, or then, if the person holds a wind of it, you have a chargeback, and Gaijin actually has to pay money for those things, right? So it's not the case that they actually make money from botting. It's actually the opposite. It actually hurts them, right? It's just kind of like it's the same kind of thing with like when people look at like botting viewers online. Like it works for a period of time, but then the cost outweighs the benefit. But yeah, it's interesting seeing people talk about Naval and the botting stuff. Like, Naval isn't on life support or anything like that. Like, it's pretty much the same as it's been for the longest time. It just isn't as popular as a mode as others, because of the nature of the combat and because of the nature of Naval itself. Naval is one of those parts of military history which appeals to a decent amount of people, but if you actually have a look at the amount of people who actually play naval games, it's incredibly low compared to other vehicular games. So even World of Warships, if you compare the World of Warships player numbers to, let's say, World of Tanks, it's insane the difference between them. So yeah. And what was the next point? Lastly, APHE type shells should be removed. Yes, they exist in real life, but when a single APHE shell can defeat a tank, whereas a solid shot needs several hits, that's either right nor fair. Remove the post-burn explosion from all shells and let people guess where to shoot. Things as they are now are dumber than World of Tanks Gold Ammo Plague. No. No, I don't think so. If anything, people should learn where to shoot. If you want to see what happens when a game mode doesn't know how to balance shells, you just have to look at Naval. Let's see if we can hit this guy. Sorry, I just want to take this guy out. He's a little bit close in my private space. So then we have Hayden and Dill. I recently played the Zaklam Tega and I liked it. Am I crazy? Crazy. I was crazy once. They locked me in a room, a rubber room with Zaklam Tegas, and Zaklam Tegas make me crazy. People can enjoy what they want in War Thunder. It is how it is. But that is a bit crazy. My favorite thing about the Zaklam was using it against Pumas, because the Puma was heavily under BR'd, and the Zaklam was heavily over BR'd. Always fun. Alright, there we go. And we have the next one, which is RP Scorp. The only APHE that's powerful is the 2S38, and only because it's both a Swiss Army knife of capabilities and has the best APHE shell currently. That guy is delusional. Sure. I mean, I don't know if we've been around in the same game for the last 5 years, but the reason why certain light tanks or IFVs keep going up in BR when other things don't is because they're very good. You know, Baguette Panzer for the light tanks, HSTVL, you know, stuff like that, and then the Puma once again. Plus all the M3A3 Bradley went up 2 BR brackets when it was added. The Dardo's gone up as well. I don't know. Hey, regular case serial, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Juan. Hopefully you're doing good. It would be nice to track the BR changes over the last few years of vehicles and see which ones are the most affected. And I bet you any money it's light tanks. Or IFVs. Or both, if you want to put them in the same box. But yeah, people are allowed different opinions. It's what makes the world fun. So we have Jeremiah Hewson. Weird question, what's the funnest F-104? Out of the ones that I've played, the German one, the F-104G, it has 4 AIM-9Js and countermeasures, so it has pretty much everything you'd want. Right now, the F-104 ALC might be in a better position just because of its BR, but the ones I've had the most fun with are those two. They were pretty good. Then we have Ameli Areva. I probably said that completely wrong. Tenno Mark, Armored Warfare has that already. Yeah, different games have different things. You know, but also experiences can differ. Most FPSs have guns, but it is how it is, and nice to see, you know. Battle Buddy or not today? For what exactly? Then we have Kitanemi. I pray Infantry doesn't get added to War Thunder. I don't think it belongs in the game. If you want to play Combined Arms with Infantry, go play Enlisted or Battlefield 4. Yeah, I think people should play Enlisted right now to just see how bad of an idea it is to have ridiculously aggressive CAS and vehicles around Infantry. Because at the moment, that is all Enlisted is. And that's why I haven't pretty much played it until the... I haven't played it since... well, the last event. Because I just realized that why am I basically smashing my head into something when it is obvious that the game is going in a direction that I'm not interested in? And that is the imbalance between vehicles and infantry. Why should I be cannon fodder because somebody gets to sit at the back of a map, or if somebody just gets in a plane that if I don't counter, I just die to over and over and over again, and I can't even harm. It's amazing how unbalanced that game is right now. And they just didn't even think about it. Like they just kept adding stuff. Like surely the priority should have been to not add a ton of stuff and instead put in a system into the game first which would balance these things. But you know, we only brought it up like 4 years ago. How you could never balance a game like it. But thank God, after 6 or 7 years of development, they've finally realized that they have a fundamental flaw in their system. So thank God, you know. Maybe now it will be in a better space. And we have John Erickson, either nerf CAS massively or completely remove it. Extreme ideas usually don't do great in terms of people accepting them. So usually it's better to do minor changes over time, and then the minor changes eventually in incremental sets become major changes. So if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do it slowly and arbitrarily. Could work. But don't think there'll be a lot of people who'll be for it. Maybe there would, who knows. So we have Elverman. YouTubers are ruining War Thunder. Your average YouTuber brings 1 tank and 1 plane to a game. They never capture points. Instead, they play between caps, jiggling their tank forward and backward like a squirrel on coke. I see so many bad players imitating the game style. Well, yeah, because they're trying to get footage for the vehicle. I've talked about how I don't like it, and I've never liked it. So the idea... There's a fundamental problem with War Thunder content creation, and this isn't just like a War Thunder thing, this is like a content creation thing in general. Like there's real problems with it where like a lot of War Thunder content is in its own way staged, right? Meaning that you set up the stage yourself by the vehicles that you run, and you are never really running what would be classed as the average player's setup. Like you don't run like a full lineup most of the time, or you're running ace crews, or you're running a spaded vehicle, or you're doing all of these things together, right? Because, you know, it turns out if you're in a low tier vehicle and, you know, you like play it for like 1 or 2 days straight, turns out you can get like 1 or 2 pop-off matches, especially if you play all the time and it's, you know, part of your job to do it and you're running ace crews. But yeah, a lot of the time you just get fucked. Like one of the things that I did like a while ago was I kind of just like sat down and because I'm very, what's the word? I'm very disenfranchised with a lot of gameplay when it comes to content creator stuff in War Thunder, because it isn't, I know how the system works. Like it's it's technically not in a real state, right? And people base their opinions off that fake state of the game, which is why I don't think like content creator councils or any dumb shit like that actually works, because you're not dealing with what the average person's dealing with, therefore you can't represent them, blah blah blah. Same issue with governance and all of that. But the problem I have is when it's taken as gospel and then it forms opinions on things. And then you just hear constant narratives about things and you just kind of sit there and then you try it and it's like, wait, this is nothing like what I've been told. And over time it just gets worse. And, because it's done for entertainment and not necessarily for anything else, it's just is how it is. Like the main thing, at least for me, is to not use it for any legitimate or real discussion, because it's not designed for that. And if it is used for real or legitimate discussion, you're just gonna fail every time. But yeah, I took a period of time just to kind of look and see how much people are actually playing of these vehicles, right? Like how much are these like CCs sitting down and playing these stuff for the videos? And most of them play like 10 or 20 matches in a vehicle and then that's it. They take the highlights, or they take the 1 or 2 games or 3 or 4 games where they do okay, and then that's it. And that's your look into the vehicle. I still remember one video which was like really funny, which was it was actually from Fly, and I actually think Fly's very good at what he does, or at least he used to be. I haven't seen any of his stuff in a while, because, well, I'm just not really focused on that part of YouTube. I don't find gameplay that interesting, because I can just do my own stuff. But there was a video which I found hilarious, and it was about the rattle, right? And it was when South Africa were added to the game, and he was doing the classic thing. So if you don't know the formula for making gameplay content on YouTube, here you go. So number 1, in the first 10 to 20 seconds of the video, you want to do a little highlight thing with a bit of music, with like, oh, funny moment, ha ha ha, or meme. Okay, so then you go into you talking about whatever you're going to do in the video. And then also say, stick around for gameplay, and then keep music on in the background, because you're aiming at children who have severe ADD, right? Then you go into gameplay. You either use your live commentary that you've got, or you fake the commentary on top of it and kind of describe what's going on. So then it sounds like you know what you're doing, right? So that, depending on which one you're looking at, that's what happens. So then you just do that over and over again. And then you have, an outrageous title, outrageous thumbnail, and there you go. You've now captured the imagination of every War Thunder teenager who's existed. Now, in one of these videos, Fly was talking about the rattle, and he was in the hangar, talking about the rattle and saying how amazing it was, because it had this this ATGM. It was either sorry, it wasn't the ATGM one. It was the other one. It was the one with the 90mm. And he was saying how broken it was because it had this 90mm heat FS, and it was crazy, and it was gonna do really well, and then he showed like the gameplay of it. And he like ran to a specific position and then just died. And let's see if I can find it so I can kind of like show what I mean. Yeah, here we go. I'm pretty sure it was this one. So yeah, let's do a lesson in video making, if you want one. Just and this is from like a few years ago now. I can't remember where. 2 years ago, right? Now
Our
the content
worlds revolve around food.
The content
But
hasn't changed
food
at all.
impacts our world too.
So-
on the low carbon diet.
So here you go. It's a meme.
Everyone, please let this be a normal field trip with a friend. No way.
So it's a meme with copyrighted music, so I can't show it. Sorry, I'm just shooting down a P8. And then so he goes, and then he shows a highlight from the game where he gets killed. Which is like, you know, once again the meme, and then he goes into the hangar, right? So right?
Ladies and gentlemen, what is this? What? Look, listen. When War Thunder adds vehicles like this, now I should have known when they add vehicles like this, right? Like this should have been the knife in the heart. Not an expression, but you know what I mean. But this one's just putting 3 or 4 more into that phrase. They're running out of things to add. Like, I think this year, it's the A10 and the F14 and something else, and then 2022 is the year of paper. It has to be. What is this? This is like if 5th graders went to war. A short bus with a French, I would say, 90 millimeter on board, 320 millimeters a pen. Like, what more could you ask for in War Thunder? It's just that when you have 6.7 perfectly set up for meta, and then you have 6.3 IS-2 with, let's go with a fully ace crew, 20-second reload at 6.3 that you can completely penetrate 2 times over maybe 1.5 times. This one has really good armor, but you mean like...
This is where people, by the way, this is where narratives come from, where penetration is everything and nothing else, okay? So he's bigging up the vehicle, right? Alright.
Like with the sound changes, I didn't know that was like a big heavy tank. They don't sound big and heavy. Truck simulator.
So it's just him wandering around. So he did this whole map, right?
Oh. All right, we're at our bus stop. Okay, continuing on. Don't mind it. We're just in a minor war zone here. One of our wheels is out now. We're trying to get to our next stop. Okay, we're at our next stop now.
He somehow survived at, like, the front thing. So that whole first game, he did nothing, right? Okay, he drove to the enemy spawn. Second game, right? So just remember, this vehicle's busted, okay?
What?
So spawns, goes to a very OP position, right? Which is this one, up here.
Yes! Yes, no armor's best armor!
Only has it in his lineup because that's all he's playing to get the footage, right? Which is like standard. It's just how it goes. And then sits in the OP position, scouts a few vehicles.
Alright, good. We might have been able to get out of this area.
Clips the moving because the thing's slow as fuck.
Spare my left nut.
And how many kills did he get there? Oh, that's right. None. 4 kill assists. Right, then the next one. Let's see.
This is what happens. You get close, but you don't get 3,000. We will, though, one day. Hey.
Is this the game where he did well? So this is the game at the end where he does well. The one game out of the 20 that he played. Where he got 9 kills. The other 2 games that he could show, he had 0 kills and did nothing. But the narrative now, since most people only watch the first part, and maybe some of the gameplay, is the vehicle is now broken because it has very high penning heat FS. As I said, like, just take that like template. That's every single War Thunder gameplay YouTuber of the last like 5 years. The only difference is their personality, which is fair because some of them have really fun personalities. But it's not exactly like, you know, we're not talking about like high quality like stuff which is impossible to do, right? So yeah, it definitely it pushes narratives and support things which are a little bit all over the place, and that's a bit of an issue, and it's also one which, you know, it'll never change. Like, it's because it's not like a War Thunder thing. It's an online thing, right? It's just how it goes. So then we have geometries. Actually, bro. And then also, I like your cut, G. Hey, Tech, so here's my question. Where is my Gaijin market for console? I find it truly insulting that my RBT5, my Katusha, and Pac Puma are all worth 1,800 war bonds. Yeah, the the war bond cost thing is quite funny, I agree. It's a little bit silly. But basically, I mean, I don't know, obviously, because I'm not in that, like, I'm not in that sphere. But if I'm looking at it from an outsider and also looking at it from a business point of view, Gaijin would always want that on the market, right? Like, no matter what, they would want the Gaijin store or the Gaijin market to be on console, because they would be able to control it and they would make more money from it. So if we look at it from that point of view, the question is, why isn't it there? It must be a control issue, because there's no other reason why it could be. So the limiting factor is either Sony or Microsoft not wanting it there, because either they want a piece of it, or there hasn't been a deal which has been worked out, or maybe Gaijin doesn't want to lose their autonomy when it comes to the control of the product, right? So you need to solve that issue. No idea how you do that, because that's like one of those things that is done between, you know, bigwigs, and, you know, I'm not privy to those conversations, but that would be the main thing. So there is no reason why Gaijin would not want that stuff on the console. It costs them money not having it there. So why would they want that, right? So yeah, pretty much that. That's the end of the questions, by the way. So that's all the ones from the video. If you guys have any questions, then we could do those. We're nearly at the 4-hour mark, which is just nuts. But we're at the 4-hour mark while doing, you know, the tech talk. We're like halfway through our naval one, naval challenge, and also we completed our aviation one. So I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully we can get this one done pretty quickly, get it sorted, and yeah, I suppose we'll wrap up the tech talk here. So as always, hopefully you enjoy it. If you have any questions for the next one, make sure to put them in the description of the video. And as always, hope you guys are doing alright. Of course you should, 69 eyes. It's time to time travel. There we go. I'd like to ask what you think about the idea of giving people more vehicle decks to build. I'm someone who had lineups for everything, so 1013 and so on. You mean like more like presets? Yeah, sure. Why not? You could even add more categories for presets, yeah. I'm not ending the stream now, I'm just ending the tech talk. Like, we're still going to be going. Yeah, more presets would be good. You know, I'm always down for that. Just got to add a way of categorizing them and it should be fine. Sounds good. Alright. Look after yourselves on YouTube. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.